Oh, yeah. And as soon as I go live, my neighbors start mowing their lawn right outside.
I can't hear it.
I hope you can't hear it.
I can't hear anything.
Just wait until they get closer to the house. Oh. Okay. We are
Your
live.
congratulations are pouring in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Very,
very congratulate.
Can we talk about that later?
Yes, of course.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our special 2023 Hugo Awards Shortlist reaction live show. This isn't the usual Stitch and Bitch. We may have the usual live show later this month. Today, we're just going to be talking about the Hugo finalists. There should be one more person joining us in a little bit. We are just waiting on her. So yeah, we'll go around and introduce ourselves quickly, and then we will just jump into it, I guess. So I'll go first. I'm Rachel. This is my channel, Colonati. And I'm not currently super active online, but when I am, I'm talking about science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction stuff I'm reading, and also a lot of stuff that I'm making because I'm knee-deep in fiber crafts at this point. And that's all you need to know about me. Kelsey?
I'm Kelsey. I am the Fancy Hat Lady Reads on YouTube and TikTok, talking about sci-fi and fantasy books almost exclusively. And that's me.
Di?
Hi, I'm Diana. You can find me most places at Bookish Die, and I mostly read and talk about science fiction, fantasy, and whatever nonfiction I'm hyper fixating on this month.
Rhea?
Oh, yes. I'm Rhea, and I on and off booktube under the name The Bookfinch here on YouTube. Currently, I'm on a little bit of a hiatus, but when I do make videos, I talk about science fiction and fantasy, especially in the form of manga and comics.
Cool. All right. So this is the order in which we're going to go. There are multiple versions of the shortlist out there. I have linked the HugoAwards.org list, and that's what we're going to be referring to. I know that the one on the Chengdu site is kind of like in reverse order. We're going to be talking about the not a Hugo categories first, and then we're going to be working our way down ballot from the big categories. So we will be hitting best novel, novella, novelette, those things early on in the live show, and then we'll just see how far down ballot we get and where our thoughts lead us. So, and yes, Kristen, Rhea's hair is amazing.
I mean,
absolutely. Yes.
Oh my god, I love the back.
I've been waiting to see the back.
So good.
Yeah. Rhea has been knocking it out of the park with hairstyles in our recent live shows, so we like it. All right. I know we're going to start off with a bang because we're going to start with the Lodestar category, the Lodestar Award for Best Young Adult Book. I know at least one person here has got thoughts.
At least
we're just going to start with that.
At least 3 people.
I will read the finalists in each category. I'm going to do a shortened version, and I apologize in advance when I hit the categories with Chinese names because I have not practiced. But here we go. Lodestar. The finalists are Akata Woman by Nettie Okorafor, Blood Marked by Tracy Dion, Dreams Bigger Than Heartbreak by Charlie Jane Anders, The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik, and In the Serpent's Wake by Rachel Hartman.
Oh, also Osmo Unknown.
Osmo Unknown in the Eight Penny Woods by Catherine M. Valente. Thank you. I was cut off on my screen.
So, yes.
Let's start with something positive.
I'm so happy In the Serpent's Wake got nominated. I was a little worried because Rachel Hartman isn't like a Hugo darling, isn't really a big name. Like Tess of the Road had been nominated for the Lodestar a few years ago, and I love Tess of the Road. And In the Serpent's Wake was one of my favorites last year, and I'm so happy it's on the list.
I'm so excited because this was a book that I pre-ordered and still haven't read, but I read Tess of the Road because it was nominated for the Lodestar, and it became like a massive favorite for me. And I've been meaning to go back and then read Seraphina and Shadowscale, which is the series that comes before these books, and I haven't done it yet, but I am going to do it this summer. I'm going to read Seraphina and Shadowscale, maybe reread Tess of the Road, and then finally read In the Serpent's Wake. I have read Osmo Unknown. I did really like this one as well. This is middle grade, and it was a book where I started off early on feeling like it was in 5-star territory. By the end, I only gave it 4 stars, but that's still very good. I think for me, where it struggled a bit was sort of in the long middle, where it became a sort of formulaic quest fantasy, whereas I actually thought what was most interesting about this book was the setup. But definitely excited for more people to read this and discuss it, because I think it kind of flew under the radar a bit last year.
Absolutely. I think you're the only person I know who's read it.
For me, I think like one of the things I really like, because aside from one entry, I think actually this like selection is pretty strong. Like I for example, the Tracy Dion nomination makes perfect sense to me, because like the book itself has been fairly popular, or the series that it belongs to, and Akata Woman also, I think it's fairly good that Nettie Okorafor is getting her nods now that the series is ending.
I will say, actually, I don't think the series is over yet. It's not actually a trilogy based on what Okorafor said after Akata Woman came out. This is the only one on in this category I've actually read. I did nominate it. I was very happy to see it make the list. I think it's one of those series that it just keeps getting better, and like Akata Woman is my favorite out of the 3 so far. So I'm extremely happy about that.
I will say that for me, I guess both with the Catherine M. Valenti and Naomi Novik nominations, this like the sort of scope and stretch of this category is kind of like very nebulous in a sense, because like for example, Osmo Unknown is middle grade. It's like, so the whole like demographic of young adult is like definitely not fixed enough, because like of what kind of books get nominated and continue to keep making the list, I think. So I guess there would need to be some sort of like...
I have different feelings about middle grade making the shortlist than I do about adult books making the shortlist.
I mean, obviously.
I mean, I was just gonna say, in an ideal world, I would love something. I mean, I doubt they'll do it because the Hugos are what they are, but I would love something like what the Ignite Awards do, where they have it split between young adult and middle grade. So it's celebrating those 2 distinct categories. Like, I think the Ignite Awards are doing a really great job with that.
Yeah. I mean, Kristen asks, what ages does middle grade target? Like, I would say it's like up until like 13-year-olds, I would like. But young adult is like teens up to like in like 20 or something. I personally, I would not categorize like when you push past the like 18 years old, then I think it starts to become more like adult. Like you can start expressing more adult themes.
Generally, like in America, I tend to think of middle grade as being for middle school and YA as being for high school, which isn't like an exact age matchup, but pretty dang close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like there is some kind of malleability, because like where I grew up, middle school was grades 7 through 9. And I know in a lot of places it's 6 through 8 and 9 is in high school.
Yeah.
So it just
That's what Joss says. This is what I tend to think. 8 to 12.
Yeah,
is
about
sure.
the same.
Yeah.
Same. But it's like
Um,
where there starts to be like, for example, with older middle grade and also like older YA, kind of like there is this like sort of crossover appeal, I guess.
mhm. Yeah. I guess they are all sequels or related to other things. I'm not sure about the Charlie Jane Anders.
it is a sequel. The first book
5
was
of the
nominated
6
last year.
Osmo
Is
is a
Osmo?
standalone.
Yeah, I was
Osmo
just
is a
about to
standalone.
ask. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is actually kind of a concern that I had, was the fact that there are so many sequels. Like, it kind of read to me that people were relying on authors that they were already familiar with. Because, like, I was kind of hoping that Lake Lore by Anna Marie McLemore would be nominated. Like, it's a standalone. It's really beautifully written. I think it's a really great example of like what YA fantasy can do. So I am disappointed that didn't make it.
I'm disappointed in that too. It's one of those disappointed but not surprised things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because I feel like their work is very magical realism, and that's not the type of thing Hugo voters go for.
So are we going to start talking about the elephant in the room?
It's
So,
not
I mean,
surprising given last year's winner. Let's just say that.
Go for it. Go for it.
it's not surprising, but it's really disappointing on several levels. Like, the first, the fact that
we
Naomi
are talking
Novik,
about The Golden Enclaves, which
Yes.
is an adult novel in an adult series published by Del Rey, which is an adult publisher. They don't publish YA books. That's how you know it's an adult book.
Yeah. So I'm really disappointed on several levels. One is the fact that it is now on site, Naomi Novik. The fact that for 3 years running, she's taken up a spot that could actually go to a Y author. Like, I am going to be so mad if it turns out that Lake Lore is the one that Lake Lore, it particular just because like I love that one so much, is the one that missed out due to her taking up a spot. Like, I am just going to be incandescently furious. And it's just so frustrating, especially because we've had this conversation 3 years in a row, like especially last year when she won. And you would think that, maybe Hugo voters would be like, oh, hey, people are actually mad about this. What the fuck? And you don't have that. She didn't recuse herself.
I mean, are people other than us mad about it? I kind of feel like we're screaming into a void here.
No, because like last year when she won, there was a pretty significant uproar about it, like within like YA authors like voicing criticism. But Cadence 99 says, so first of all, Golden Enclaves is published by an adult imprint, especially in the US. In the UK, the publisher is both adult and YA. They don't really like separate the two. Then the second thing is it is priced under adult pricing structure. So basically, like for example, YA hardcovers tend to be a little bit cheaper than adult book retail prices. So it is a full hardcover price, which usually is for adult books. And second of all, it's like the theming and everything in the book is like very like it has very adult themes. It has crossover appeal to like older YA, but generally it has been marketed, published, like the imprint and everything is under adult.
And I find it a little bit fascinating how broad the misconception that this series is YA is. Like, every place, especially like on TikTok, I go on TikTok and people are dead certain that these books are YA, and this isn't helping.
Yeah. And the problem also, sorry.
Oh, go ahead and I'll.
No, I think the problem also is that when the first book came out, Naomi Novik basically, because the book was, I think it was in an all crate or some sort of subscription box, and people were criticizing it for the heavy themes, similar to what happened actually with Poppy War, and Naomi Novik took to Twitter and said that it is an adult book. there's some that's what she said then. However, whenever she's been on the like award nominations, she's been on the like shortlist, that's when she goes radio silent and doesn't actually contradict what is happening, and that is why people are frustrated.
I have told this story on multiple live streams before, but it bears repeating. I was at Naomi Novik's reading in Dublin, where at Worldcon there, where she read from the first book in this series before there was really any public information known about it, and she told the story of why it was being published as adult, which is that contractually or something, she had to show the book to her adult publisher first. And they wanted it, even though she had maybe thought she was writing a YA book, and they explained to her why they thought this was a book they wanted to market as an adult series and why they wanted to publish it as adult. So at the time, she was obviously very aware that regardless of what she might have thought when she was writing the first book initially, the series was being published as adult. And by the time you're writing the second book in that series, you obviously know you're going to be selling it to this adult publisher. And like, certainly by the time you're writing the third book, like, this is not known. This is understood.
Yeah. And so to go back to her previous comment about some previous comments about like thinking it's why, or people saying that's why, I think there's several reasons for that. One is the fact that YA, and this is something that folks on Twitter right now are talking about. If you follow Alex Brown on Twitter, they've been talking and retweeting stuff about it, is that YA right now, a lot of things that are being published are things that publishers think that adults will like as well. So you're seeing kind of an aging up of YA, and that YA isn't always being targeted at its target audience. So you have those kind of expectations. You also have adult publishers who are doing more books that kind of have more crossover appeal. And so the one for me that really sticks out is Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Like, when I read it, part of the reason I initially stopped and like put it on a to read later was it read more YA than what I was expecting from adult books. And you're seeing that more and more. Like, if you look at Fairy Loot's adult subscription, or in particular, people will be like, why are they putting this in the adult book? This reads like YA. And so you're having authors who, you're having these books that people are kind of conditioned to think of as YA. And then there's also the fact that women and people of color author, or like, their books tend to be classified as YA even when they aren't. And that is, in particular, what makes me so frustrated with Naomi Novik doing this, is because you have so many authors who are saying like, hey, my book might have a young protagonist, but it is not YA. Like, these themes are not YA appropriate. Like, they are specifically for adults.
Mm-hmm.
And
I want to say, like, everything that Novik published prior to the series was for an adult audience, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And I do also want to say that this isn't like, this is a conversation we've been having for as long as I've been on BookTube, at least. But and the misconception that Naomi Novik's books are YA isn't actually new to this series. Lots of people referred to Uprooted and Spinning Silver as YA as well, and they were not. They were adult books.
I think part of the reason why it's also like a really interesting topic is that because like sometimes there seems to be this trend where publishers are almost like targeting like YA books for like 20 plus something audience, and not actually the demographic that they're supposed to be targeted towards, which is like teen readers.
So one of the really interesting things, if you actually look at the audience of people who consume YA, is that it is largely women between 25 and 40. And I think a lot of that is because it became kind of a safe spot to publish something that was like maybe on the edge of sexy, but like not super smutty. And so initially when YA came onto the scene, like that was a place that a certain type of person was drawn to, right? You didn't necessarily want something super explicit, but you wanted something that was like romantic and engaging and like had more adult themes than a kid's book. But that is very much in the background, and I think is a little bit of what Di was getting at the first part of her comment. Also, hi.
Hello. We missed you, Bree.
I missed
That's
you.
actually interesting what LKM says about Alexei Harrow made sure that people knew that 1000 Doors was adult. And I heard so many people when it was published say that it was YA and talk about it as a YA book. So this is also another thing where a book that was clearly adult and also the author confirmed this is an adult book and published by an adult imprint, and still people while they were doing reviews and promoting it on like BookTube and now on TikTok and stuff, confuse it for YA.
Well, I mean, you see the same thing with House on Cerulean Sea, right? It is at its core an adult book, but a lot of people, especially with the like cover art and with the way it's been marketed, see it as something more akin to YA.
That was on the Lodestar long list.
It was. I was just like,
really?
It was on the long list. If
that doesn't even
last
have
year.
even a moderately young protagonist.
Yeah,
That
it
isn't
was a
even-
middle-aged office worker with like burnout and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like,
How are we
clearly.
so confused? Did we read the book?
Yeah, I'm looking at Paul's comment about
I was just
teen
gonna bring
Hugo
that up.
memberships getting away, and I would love for something like that. And I know with the Ignite Awards for the young adult and middle grade was because, for folks who don't know, the Ignite Awards are presented by Fire Magazine, and it's a juried shortlist. So people will select works to be on the shortlist, and then it's a popular vote for the winner. And for the young adult and middle grade ones, they had teens and tweens involved in selecting those books. And I think that shows a better range of what's being published that's actually directed towards those age groups. So like with the Ignite Awards, Lake Lore was there, Ballad and Dagger by Daniel Jose Older, Bloodmarked was there by Tracy Dion. That's the only crossover book between them. And I think with that one, you also saw more standalone or more first book in series. Let me pull it up real quick.
I guess my question now is it actually kind of weird to have a YA/middle grade award category for Hugo Awards that are predominantly nominated and voted on by adults?
Yeah.
It just really struck me that that's kind of like, it's always going to be the adults' perception of what they think is YA, and
This is
one
where
of the kids.
I know.
my opinion on the Lodestar Award has shifted over the years that we've had it, which has not been very many years. But I feel like the first couple years we had this award, maybe the first 3 years. Let me look up what the shortlists were. But
I think 2018 was the first year.
Shortlists, and I discovered books that I wouldn't have read otherwise that became like all-time YA favorites for me. And I feel like the quality of the shortlist for the Lodestar has like dropped
down
since then. Yeah. And I don't really know what to make of that.
I think we also have to remember that the Lodestar comes with all of the same baggage that the Hugos does in a lot of ways. So not only is it like, this is adults voting on something that they think is good YA, but also has all of the like politics and all of the different like the internal conversation that we often have about the Hugos, which is like, did you enjoy this or is this good? Right? It's like a canon conversation essentially. And that adults are not equipped to have that conversation, I think, about YA books in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I don't even think that we should, because we're not the audience. So, like, I mean, we can be part of that conversation, but like the adult voices should not be centered in like what makes the best YA book, you know?
Yeah.
I think a closing thought on this category is that we have serious issues with the track record of this award, but the actual nominees are good books.
Yeah.
We should probably stress that a little bit. All right, should we move on to Astounding?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the Astounding Award for Best New Writer, the finalists are Travis Baldree, Nassim Jamnia, Isabel J. Kim, Maijia Liu, Everina Maxwell, and Wei Muxin. I'm happy that Travis Baldree is there because I think this is the only one on this list that I nominated, but I never nominate a lot in this category.
The only person who I nominated who's here is Nassim Jamnia, because I read The Bruising of Kiowa, and it was not my favorite novella, but I definitely was interested in the work that they were doing and like the themes that they were working with. And it definitely, like, they're definitely an author that I want to read more of what they wrote after their debut. I'm a little shocked that Jiran J. Zhao is not on the list because it's their second year of eligibility.
Really?
Wasn't it last year?
I thought
that was their second year of
eligibility was
eligibility.
No, last year was their first year because that was when Iron Widow was also on the ballot for the Lodestar. They were eligible this year. I was also hoping that Sarah El-Arifi would be on the short list. I nominated her because I really liked The Final Strife.
I think for me, I think like this is a pretty strong list overall of different candidates. There are a couple, like for example.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I just realized that I don't think Brie got a chance to introduce herself.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Brie. I've been away for a while, but I have in the past had a booktube channel called Brie Reads Books. I have frequently been on the Stitch and Bitch, and I'm happy to be here. Hi.
Hello.
All right.
I should say my small is downstairs, and we thought he was going to take a nap, and then you might hear screaming at some point. Unclear. I'll mute if that happens.
You know what we haven't had yet? Speaking of small things in people's houses. Cat.
Yeah, my cat. I don't know where Luke is. Leia is like, I can see her, have a direct line of sight on her, but she's just like, you will not capture me on camera.
She's still hiding.
No, she's not hiding. Like, I can see her. Like, she is staring out the back door. She just does not want to be perceived by the internet today.
Yeah, I had guests earlier today, so Hermes is sulking in the bedroom right now because he had to be social, and he actually had to be petted by a stranger.
Jamie is taking her much needed post-lunch nap. She will probably show up later.
Will it make people motion sick if I show Wally? She's like right here behind me.
Wally!
Show us the baby.
She is being her most like self-indulged self.
She's so floofy.
Hey, Ron.
I will say about the list that there's for example, Wei Muxin and Maijia Liu. I haven't read their stories, so this is like a good opportunity for me to like actually like find out about some new voices that I haven't read yet. And
I don't know what either of them have published.
I don't know anything about them. Paul mentioned Isabel J. Kim has done some good stuff.
I think in short fiction.
In short fiction, yeah.
It's actually, I do like that a primarily short fiction author has been nominated for The Astounding.
I think that happens fairly regularly. That short fiction authors.
It didn't happen last year, though, I don't think.
No, it was all novel writers last year.
Yeah, but the previous year was like majority short fiction authors, I think. I think that Travis Baldree, personally, I think that he has such a like a big traction going on right now that
Mhm.
I would be surprised if he didn't win this category.
I have to say,
think
I
he's
feel
definitely-
like I'm getting ahead a little bit here. But Legends and Lattes is in the best novel category, and I don't really see it winning that category.
Yeah.
But I think the popularity of that book could really translate over to the best new writer category.
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I could see him winning The Astounding. I mean, granted, I've not read Legends and Lattes, but I can see it being like a lot of people's like second or third choices, like not really their first choice. But which is like, maybe that's how it wins, but I can also see like when the voting numbers are released, I can see it being higher up.
I mean, I have some thoughts when we get to like the best novel, but like about like this sort of like traction and popularity that these books have outside of book spaces,
Mhm.
basically. Because I see these books a lot. Like Travis Baldry and also Tamsin Muir. Like it's not just like they don't have popularity just in the like bookish corner of the internet bubble. It's like they've actually like hit like mainstream.
Mhm.
Like yesterday I was at a wedding and people were like hyping up Gideon the Ninth, and like people who normally I wouldn't even associate with like reading a lot of science fiction or fantasy or anything, and they were just like, this book I found out and it's great, and I'm like, oh, okay.
This category this year, I really hope that the voter packet has works from the nominated authors here, because I would like to read a sampling of their work, and I think that with at least 2 of these, I probably wouldn't be able to get my hands on their stuff otherwise. So
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot I need to read in this category. I think the only one of these authors I've actually read so far is Everina Maxwell.
The only one I've read is Nesmeen Jimnia. I haven't read anyone else.
I think Everina Maxwell was also on my list because I had read Ocean's Echo right before I did my nominations, so I enjoyed her books a lot.
Yeah, I've read Nassim Jamnia and Travis Baldry, and I've heard of Everina Maxwell. The other ones for me are like new. So I think it's a good crossover between people I am aware of and people who I've like not been introduced to yet.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Anything else for that category? Any more thoughts? All right.
This was very straightforward, unlike the first one.
Back to the top. Best novel. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, the best novel finalists are The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Moore, Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, and The Spare Man by Mary Robinette Kowal.
That's a list.
It is a very mid. It's mid.
I'm very happy that Nettle and Bone made it because I nominated it, and it.
I didn't realize that Nettle and Bone was novel length.
Yeah, it's a very short novel. Nettle.
Yeah.
I'm happy about Nettle and Bone. I'm happy that Sylvia Moreno Garcia finally got her Hugo nomination.
I thought she was.
I think everything else is very mid.
I'm not.
Has
Sylvia Moreno Garcia been nominated before?
Certainly not in best novel. And anything else?
Maybe.
I don't
know. I mean,
know
it's a crime that she hasn't.
Yeah, because
I haven't actually read this one yet. Though.
Oh no, Gods of Shade and Shadow was nominated for the Nebula Award that year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure what I think about the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi being in the best novel. Like,
look,
I understand.
Red Shirts, which is not a good book, so I'm not shocked that he's on the list.
I am also not shocked that I have enough faith in the Hugo voters that even though I am not even slightly surprised it's on this list, I think when people read the books on this list and compare them side by side, Kaiju Preservation Society won't win.
Yeah.
Same.
I say this without having read Kaiju Preservation Society, but like in general, I find John Scalzi to be just very meh as a writer for me.
I think
Part of that is I'm definitely not in the pocket for his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I just think that there's so many better books. That being said, the Scalzi people are like...
Yeah. The ones who are in the Scalzi camp go hard.
Yeah, they go hard.
Yeah.
The only
That said-
Scalzi books I've read are the ones that have been nominated for Hugos in recent years. This one and The Collapsing Empire, and both of them I felt very lukewarm about.
For me, I think like Scalzi is like I haven't read, like I've read by like 3 books by Scalzi in all the years of reading, even before BookTube and stuff. And I think that he kind of scratches that itch of like, you know, comforting, like funny. If you like that type of humor, it's very it's kind of bro humor in a way.
I think Kaiju Preservation Society in particular, more so than Collapsing Empire, is meant to be a sort of like self-insert fantasy for the reader for a demographic that is not me.
Yeah.
I feel like if I look at all of the books on the category, like the Kaiju Preservation Society, Legends and Lattes, and even to some extent Nettle and Bone, even though Nettle and Bone is a little bit darker, I would categorize these as being kind of like something that people would read as like a comfort thing.
I read Kaiju Preservation Society as a travel read because I needed something that wouldn't take my brain power when I was on airplanes.
Yeah.
I haven't read every single book on this list. I haven't read the Daughter of Dr. Moreau, and I'm not reading the series by Tamsin Muir. But what strikes me about this, the ones I have read, four of the 6, is all of them I would categorize as being kind of like fun reads, not hard hitting all the time, but like fun. Pick them up because you want to have, you know, that itch scratch.
Time.
Yeah, to have a good time. And now I really, really enjoyed the Kaiju Preservation Society, but I read it for exactly what Scalzi intended it to be. He calls it a pop song of a story. That's what it is. It's just, don't take it seriously, just enjoy it. A palate cleanser. I super loved it for that. But
I've read 3 of these. I've read Kaiju Preservation Society, Nettle and Bone, and The Spareman, and I am a fairy tale novel girl, and I thought Nettle and Bone was just such a successful fairy tale novel. Both in terms of its really dark, heavy subject matter in the beginning, which I think is part of what makes it feel awardsy to me, but also the amount of warmth and hope come the ending that made it a comfort read. And I think that fairy tale novels generally have an uphill battle when it comes to the Hugo Award Best Novel category. I was looking over the list of Best Novel winners, and I honestly couldn't identify a single novel that has ever won the Hugo Award that I would be certain in my categorization of it as a fairy tale novel. Granted, I'm making assumptions about a lot of books I haven't read here. Like the closest thing might be Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I don't actually consider to be a fairy tale novel. I consider it to be a fantasy, a fantasy of manners.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And so if Nettle and Bone could pull this off and win Best Novel for the fairy tale readers, I would be really happy. And I feel like it might actually have a chance because T. Kingfisher is, you know, a Hugo favorite. And that,
well, there's also Mary Robinette Kowal is another Hugo favorite, and she's also in this category. And then there's Travis Goltry and Tamsin Muir.
I'm a Kowal fan, but I was actually rather disappointed by The Spareman.
That's interesting because I've been like I've enjoyed Kowal's books in the past, but not like loved them, and I liked The Spareman better than The Calculating Stars.
See, I'm not a big like Mary Robinette Kowal fan to begin with, because all the stories that I've tried to read by her have been kind of like I've just been like, eh. But I like her like as a person. Like she, like for example, her tweets and like her commentary, especially about the con scene and stuff, like thoroughly interesting. Like if she ever published like a non-fiction book, I would be really excited about that. Her fiction just isn't it for me. About Nettle and Bone, I think that part of the reason why I also really like it, aside from the fairy tale aspect, it is the meta narrative of that book is really great in terms of like how it actually comments on like the tropes, not only in fairy tale stories, but in fantasy stories in general, like the whole fantasy genre. The meta narrative is really strong in that. Like it is like there's so much to analyze, even though it is like such a short book. Like, mwah.
I also think it does a really good job of showing like the multifaceted aspect of rage when you're experiencing like, I guess, an ism, right? In this case, sexism, but like that idea that you can love somebody who has been contributing to your oppression and recognize that like they are in fact themselves victims and yet still hold them accountable. And that like all of those things work together when you're trying to identify like the source of your rage, I think is a very interesting commentary and a very good guide through what that process looks like internally.
Yes.
Side note, I really loved Nettle and Bone. But, you know, that's no surprise.
Nettle and Bone and Sylvia Moreno Garcia are the two that I'm most excited about. I did see there's a comment in the chat about whether R.F. Wong declined a nomination for Babel. And I'm wondering that as well, because like I was honestly shocked that Babel wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's either one of two things. Either she declined a nomination, or there were just enough people like me who did not read it in time for nominations because we assumed it was going to be on the short list and we're waiting for it to be in the voter packet, that it just missed out barely. And I hope that it's not my fault.
I would be shocked if it weren't on the long list. I'm sure it'll be on the long list.
Oh yeah, it's
either on the long list or we'll see that it was declined.
I wonder if, like, for example, when Raven Tower was nominated but didn't make it, and it was said that Ann Leckie declined the nomination for that. Yeah,
and I think it was one of the more recent Murder and Bot novellas that Martha Wells declined as well.
Oh, Fugitive Telemetry.
Soren!
Oh, look at that big boy.
We have our second kitty showing.
I'm so glad that Bree's fulfilling the cat content since all of our other cats are being butts.
I've got you.
Yeah, Hermes is a mega butt always.
Such a love butt. I love him.
Yeah, I am prepared to make a personal apology video if it turns out that Babel misses by one vote and it made the short list if I had read it.
No, I'll be really interested to see, because wasn't it on the redacted one?
No, it wasn't even on the redacted list. Yeah.
Are we going to mention that drama at all, or are we just pretending that didn't happen?
I mean,
we can mention it.
If we have time, we should talk about it in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to say about it other than an early version of the list was leaked. It was not accurate, but it wasn't wildly different either. So.
Yeah. So
the main difference
also being how delayed the release of this shortlist has been, which is woof.
What I find interesting is that the shortlist altogether has been delayed, and then that the voting period starts tomorrow.
Yep.
Maybe we can talk about this all later. Maybe I shouldn't brought.
Yeah. So Cadence has a really good question in the chat, which is, what are reasons that authors will decline nominations in this category in particular? There are a whole bunch of reasons people have talked about in the past. The most common is that people feel like they've already gotten accolades and like pass it forward.
That's why Ann Leckie declined. Was she had won, I think, for Ancillary. She had won for Ancillary, one of her books, and I think she wanted to like promote health in the category. And then like I know for some other categories, like fanzine in particular, there's a trend of the winners will recuse themselves for the next year for the health of the award, to try and encourage more people, to encourage newer nominations. So like Lady Business, which several of my friends write for, won a couple of Hugos, and then they recused themselves the next year. Nerds of a Feather did that as well. So that's why they weren't on the ballot last year, but they are this year.
We might also have people turning down nominations just like quietly for sort of protest against
That's the other complication of
and
this year's Hugo Awards is
bringing their guests of honor.
Yeah,
I like sometimes authors and other potential nominees who recuse for all of the reasons that Di just mentioned will actually state in advance that they will decline a nomination if nominated because they want to pass it on, and the reason they'll say this in advance is to give people nominating a chance to actually use that nominating vote for someone else, instead of wasting it on someone who's going to decline anyways. But if an author has a more personal reason, like I can totally see R.F. Kuang possibly just deciding that she does not want to be the face of this Worldcon and all of the,
I would imagine
might come out of that in both America and China or whatever.
So R.F. Kuang was born in China and has a PhD in Chinese studies. I'm looking at their biography on Wikipedia right now. I imagine that there is a lot of hangups that come with that. Especially with any kind of drama that might be happening on the China side of what's going on. If you're not up on the politics of that, that is something definitely to look into, is the politics of that part of this Worldcon, which is oof.
I personally don't want to dive too deep into that, but there definitely is a lot of issues there.
That if it turns out that authors, when we get the long list, that any authors have declined nominations, we aren't owed an explanation from them of why they've chosen to decline. It's their right to keep their reasons private.
Yep.
There are some interesting theories going on in the chat as well. Rachel's convinced it's a political reason and that something's going on there. And then we've got another comment about the editor having been pissed on Twitter.
Oh, whoa.
I would personally wait to see the long list before going conspiracy theory on this, because so much of this Hugo list is so normal that if there is some meddling behind the scenes, I kind of would have expected the list to look less absolutely run-of-the-mill than
the problem is, I think it's really easy for the Hugos to look run-of-the-mill because Hugo,
it's a popular vote.
I am fully prepared that if I am wrong and we get the long list and the nominating data and something looks bizarrely off about, Babel not being on the long list or something, I am prepared to make myself a very fancy tinfoil hat and put it on and start conspiracy theorizing, but I am not there yet.
One, I need to see that regardless. And
your fancy tinfoil hat.
Two, it is the fact that it is incredibly run-of-the-mill that in and of itself with something like this would send red flags for me, but I'm not involved enough in the politics of this to be convinced either way.
Yeah. I would also it will be interesting to see how the data in the long list looks like because I would be shocked if Bubble didn't get any nominations, because I know for a fact that it did.
And the other thing I don't want to discount is potentially just how fucking annoying the form was, like that could also impact the nominations.
Yeah.
There,
I mean, I had to
there
nominate
was-
2 times because like my VPN crapped out.
yeah, I definitely have, you know, I couldn't nominate without a VPN. I know that there was the actual process of submitting the nominations was just ever so slightly different than it normally was. So, like the first time I thought I had nominated, my nominations hadn't actually gone through, and I was super glad that I went back and like checked. So there are lots of valid criticisms about just what we've seen about this WorldCon's process in the, you know, member facing communications and running of the nomination process.
Yeah.
And all of that is, I think, extremely valid.
Is there anything else that didn't make this category that you thought would?
I would say, like, it wasn't my favorite, but I'm a little surprised that N.K. Jemison's book wasn't here.
Yeah. See,
Again,
I
it
kind of
could be-
disagree because I felt that it had like a surprising number of people were actually pretty vocal about the fact that it wasn't their favorite N.K. Jemisin book.
It's more of the fact that Hugos have inertia and people tend to nominate who they know. That's kind of why I'm a little surprised.
People tend to read who they know. And like, I want to be very transparent about the fact that I observe this happening in myself. I read things that are nominated for the Hugos every year, and I have my favorites and my less favorites, but then I am every year more and more likely to pick up books by authors who have been nominated for Hugos in the past, just because reading for this award forces me to read those authors every year. And then I've read those books and I can nominate them. And it's a thing that happens. With regards, oh yes.
Oh, I was just about to say that, like, definitely there's a trend that people read who they know, but I don't know if there's like not zero amount of people who also, because I know that I am guilty of this, that kind of pick their reading on would this make the Hugos, basically, like would this be awards worthy?
I don't pick my reading based on that, but what I actually put on my ballot is often driven by, do I think this is even known widely enough to have a chance to make the long list, much less the short list? You feel like you're kind of wasting your nominations if you're putting out things that just you don't think a lot of people have had access to.
Yeah. I will say I increasingly care about the long list much more than the short list for that reason.
Yeah.
If this is your first time watching this and this is like your first Hugos, the long list is like where it's at.
Yeah, the long list basically always shows more diversity of like what is actually what people have been like. It's basically a good data set of what people actually have been reading in the year.
Angela brings up a good one. Spear Cuts Through Water.
I
haven't read it, but I really thought based on buzz. Yeah,
I want to read it.
Yeah. Right. The only award where it's been nominated for best novel is the Ignite Awards.
Wasn't Jimenez at one point on the ballot for Astounding Award, or am I remembering wrongly? Yeah.
Yes.
So he is already like basically like someone who potentially could be known for the Hugo audience. So in that case, it makes sense that
I was a little surprised. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was finished.
One that I would have liked to see, but I'm not surprised it didn't make it, was When Women Were Dragons, which is the new Kelly Barnhill. Which, by the way, if you like queer friendly, like it has a little bit of a vibe of like The Calculating Stars, but also not. I really liked it, and I was not surprised, but I was a little bummed.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it. Maybe that's like
Kelly
kind of this
Barnhill's
thing.
one of those authors that when people talk about them, they talk about their like YA stuff.
Yeah.
And forget that they do anything for adults.
Can I ask, what do we think the chances are that this could be Tamsin Muir's year? Because I haven't read Nona yet. I have been completely lukewarm. Well, not lukewarm. I have had polarized thoughts on the first 2 books. There are things I've loved about them and things that I've hated about them. But I kind of expect Nona to be my personal favorite book of the series so far when I read it, and I will. I wonder how much momentum this series has and if it will ever win Best Novel, maybe next year.
So here's
Not
the thing.
next year,
This is more like Best Series stuff.
Yeah.
But my expectation is the top 2 for Best Series are going to be Lock Tomb and October Day. That's just my Tin Hat conspiracy theory.
I will say that also, like Ron mentioned, that Siren Queen and Goliath would have loved to see them on the shortlist. Same, I nominated Siren Queen, so
same.
I definitely would have loved to see Nebo on the shortlist for Best Novel because it was excellent. We'll also be interested to see how many people nominated it and if it made the long list.
Mm-hmm. The one I'm very curious about is Mountain in the Sea. This was a Nebula nominee, and it was the only one on the excuse me. It's a bad allergy day. This is the only one from the Nebula Best Novel list that I didn't recognize. It kind of came out of nowhere for me, and everyone I know who has managed to get a copy and read it has really enjoyed it.
I've got it out from the library, but I haven't read it yet, but I will probably.
My libraries don't have it.
Oh no.
I will get a copy eventually because I've heard nothing but good things about it. So
shall we move on to the Best Novella then?
Yeah. Any final thoughts on Best Novel?
I'm going to be so interested to see what the long list looks like. I think that for me with Best Novel, that's what I'm mostly waiting for is what is going to be on that long list.
Yeah.
And how many nominations each thing got.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, this category for me, it's fine things, but I don't have strong opinions about really any of them. And that doesn't help with voting. I'm like, just what order do you put things in? You're like, oh, I read them, but they're all just okay. I will have much stronger feelings about the long list, I think. Okay. Best Novella. Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. Into the Riverlands by Nevo. A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow. Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shannon McGuire.
This is a category in which I am prepared to have very strong opinions despite having not read any of the books yet.
I have read exactly 50% of the nominees.
I had a comment that applies to both the novel and novella list. So this would be a good time to mention it because we're between the two, is the Tor and Tor.com prevalence on this shortlist, that if you include all imprints under the Tor Publishing Group umbrella,
I mean, it's
they
only
have
Solaris.
all but one of the nominees in novella and all but one of the nominees in Best Novel.
Yeah.
They've taken over novel now.
Yeah.
So part of this is definitely that like Tor and Tor.com have like a marketing powerhouse right now.
I mean,
not only are they like
part of one of the biggest like publishing like houses in general.
And if you look at what like the ways that like Orbit or DAW or any of them has been marketing any of their books, it's just like not remotely up to par with the way that Tor does it. Like that. And then once people keep reading them, right, it's like the Tor.com novellas. Well, oh, wow, this place does novellas. I'm going to read all the novellas they do. And those are the only novellas people read because they're easy to find.
I also think that like not that Tor is the only one who does this, but I think that there's a clear difference of like Tor.com, like Tor, the different imprints under the Tor banner, you know. They understand viral marketing and like social media marketing like clearly light heads apart compared to like a lot of the other publishing houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think they have a name brand recognition, and I think they also, just because they're so good at, they've done a very good job of, like Rhea said, of marketing. You have you have like book talkers and booktubers who really hype them up. Like the last 2 years, Bethany has done the Tor.com-a-thon, which I do have some opinions about, which I will not share here, but like that's the level of water carrying that Tor has among people who talk about books.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to their credit, there is decent curation in a lot of the Tor stuff. I think the Tor.com novellas in particular are a very good curation.
Yeah,
they're good curation. I think the harshest thing I would say about Tor.com's novellas is that at this point, you really kind of know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah.
They will be solid, but they fit within a particular kind of fantasy or sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that no one is questioning the validity of like them being a good publisher and publishing
Absolutely.
good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
However, for the health of the award categories itself, it's like very
would be
bad that
better
only one
To
publishing
have more
imprints.
robust competition.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why I was rooting for Neon Hemlock to like
I know.
take at least...
I was really, really hoping for Uncommon Charm in
Yes,
particular.
I was rooting for Uncommon Charm. I was like
I
basically
definitely hope that
making
it made the long list,
all
at
of my
least.
friends read it.
Yeah.
So has anyone read Ogres, which is the one non-Tor novella on this list? Because I'm very excited to read it. I've heard nothing but good things, but I don't really know anything about it.
I don't know anything about it. I'm just going to try to read it because it's by Tchaikovsky. Though
Yeah,
I will say I really enjoy his big chunky sci-fi novels immensely. Any of his shorter stuff is extremely hit or miss for me.
See, I really liked the oh my god, what's the name of it? Elder Race?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Elder.
I
Elder.
really
I like Elder
like
Race.
that one. So I'm looking
That's my
forward to reading
favorite
Ogres.
shorter work by him, for sure.
Also, I feel like I must read Ogres because it is published by Solaris, so I have to read the one novella that is in competition with the Tor.com ones.
Yeah.
I have read all the other ones except A Mirror Mended, Ogres, and Where the Drowned Girls Go. And to be fair, I for full transparency, I have a little bit of beef with like I have strong opinions about Alex E. Harrow, especially in this series of novellas. I read the previous one that was nominated, and the like her disability representation kind of sucks in many ways. Like sometimes reading her stuff is like it kind of like almost the way she writes disability in the main character feels like window dressing, and also kind of like to put it like bluntly, it's kind of like, what's the word for it, like trauma, you know.
Trauma porn.
Yeah,
I've read like 2 or 3 stories by her. I remember having this conversation last year when some of her stories were nominated in the short fiction categories, and I was like, I feel like I'm being emotionally manipulated by her stories. Like she specifically includes elements that like are going to pluck at your heartstrings, are going to make you have emotions, but I don't feel like it's earned.
Yeah,
or necessarily like good representation of something. I don't know.
Yeah, and also like obviously like my thoughts are only based on the very first story in the first novella in the series. So this is a continuing series in the same kind of like fairy tale multiverse thing. Yeah, but the like I don't think that she has I don't think she has had any like need to correct any of the she's continuously popular. She's continuously propped up. She's very popular on social media, and the people who talk about the issues in, for example, in the racial representation that she, for example, did in the 1000 Doors of January, or the disability rep in these novellas, those people who are criticizing it are a minority, and so
yeah.
But yeah, she won't be getting my vote. I will say that.
There are, let's see, 3 sequels on this short list. And all of them I've read first books in the series, and I have to make choices about which of these series I'm going to continue. And even though the easiest one for me to get caught up on would be the Alex E. Harrow series, because I read the first book and this is only the second one, I am least inclined to continue that series compared with the Singing Hills cycle, which I absolutely need to catch up on. And I know that they're companion novellas, so I could probably just skip ahead to In the Riverlands, but I want to read When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. And the Wayward Children novellas, which I usually like. I've read the first 4 of them.
How many of those are out now? Is it up to like
7 or 8?
Wow.
Yeah. They're a little hit or miss to me.
I usually like them more than not. I'm not averse to reading more of them, but it's not a series that I ever feel like I'm itching to pick up more books in, and I would have quite a few to read to get caught up to where the Drowned Girls go. So like that's a toss up for me.
For me, like the whole Wayward Children series has been kind of a series of diminishing returns. Like I was relatively lukewarm about the first one, like it was fine, and then I sort of kind of liked the Horse Girl one, and I actively loathe the Jack and Jill books.
I know those were not my favorites.
Yeah, so it's like a very like hit and miss, and like, and I feel like especially because like last year I think Sean Maguire had this short story also on the ballot, and when I read it, and I had just read the novella for the Horse Girl Wayward series, and it read exactly the same as the short story she had written that also included like, you know, horse stuff and like a character who was a horse and stuff. So it's kind of like when you read like some of her like stories back to back, you kind of start seeing patterns and repetition, which I necessarily
I think that element is part of why I've basically stopped reading that particular series. I have a lot of fondness for a couple of the installments, but kind of moved on to other things. Let's talk about some of these that we've actually read.
Yeah, I will say I did see a comment from Jacqueline about after winning a Best Series award, though, should there be rules or not about being able to nominate for their books? And that was something that
I think there is.
There isn't, but it was something that was brought up in the business meeting last year. It didn't pass because it was part of a package of really shitty amendments that the Hugo Awards Studies Committee brought forth. And it was like, there was a lot of really bad potential amendments.
But didn't they sort of ixnay all of that though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do think that if like it makes sense that like if a series already wins once, that it should not be nominable at least for until like a new batch of like stuff comes out.
I mean that is the rule. Like you have for series, you have like it can't be the next year, and there has to be like a certain amount of word count. So that's why like with the October Day series, she puts out enough through novels and short stories where it does meet that word count. But that's why we're not seeing like the October Day series year after year after year on the Best Series nomination.
Yeah. Although Shauna Maguire writes, it's like the Brandon Sanderson, Stephen King thing where like that's very clearly all they do with their time.
Yeah.
Which is not an inherently bad thing, just like the production on that is absurd. I did see a couple sad faces about no Becky Chambers.
I think Becky
I'm pretty
Chambers
sure
might
she
have
where I'm
refused.
going to be deathly curious to see if she turned down a nomination, because that's the other one that I purposefully put off reading because I assumed I didn't have to read it before the
I
Hugo
would
Awards shortlist.
highly suspect that she declined in this category, just based on the fact that the previous novella did win last year.
Yes, and also
and also based on what she said in her acceptance speech, I think I could very well see her saying that she wants a year off.
It's totally in line also with just like everything about the philosophy of Becky Chambers that she seems to have to bow out for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, also like she recently won the like best series for Wayfarers. I think like stuff. So she's a Hugo darling. She's been winning quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can we take a moment for me to squee about What Moves the Dead and how much I loved it?
Okay, I will chime in.
It's a spookum. It's a spookum, so I understand.
I have read it, and I was just like,
it is the one book on this list that like I am sure it's good, and I am not going to read it.
Am I the only one who thinks that it was mid?
It's not a super spookum. It's much more like, what if there was a darkish witch house, and like, it's much more Garden Witch vibes than spooky.
Okay,
dead
but
movie.
that cover gives me major ick.
What my favorite part about it is the cover art.
I love the cover for it. I would get that as a tattoo.
Stunning cover art, but it scares me about the contents of the book.
I love that. Like, I would get that as a tattoo.
Like, there's nothing that's gonna make you like have to sleep with the lights on.
No, I'm just like very particularly icky about like dead rotting things.
For me, what like kind of grinds my gears about that book is that like I quite like I read it, I quite enjoyed it, but also at the same time I hate when I'm like 20 paces ahead of all the characters and I'm just screaming at the book like, it's the freaking mushrooms, get on with the plot. So it's like it frustrates me to no end because it makes me think that the characters are really stupid for not figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Go ahead, Brie.
No, you go.
Oh, I enjoyed What Moves the Dead, but I also had that feeling like I have never read the original story. It's actually based on, what is it? The Fall of the House of Usher.
The Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah. I'm familiar with some of the concepts from it. I knew it well enough that the entire time I was reading the story, I knew what the answer was.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed all the elements, but there was no real like suspense to the plot. It was just, ooh, okay, I know those rabbits are really creepy, and I know why.
I have also
waiting for the rest of it to catch up.
I have also not read The Fall of the House of Usher, so like the especially because in the like context of where in the Finnish school system we would have read American authors, would have been on the like highly elevated like high school or like university studies classes. Mm-hmm. So my familiarity with for example Edgar Allan Poe is mostly with the Raven poem.
I mean, me too. It's not. I was never assigned to read Poe in school. I'm American.
That's interesting. Never?
Never. No, I don't think so.
I also want to talk about Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk.
Yeah.
I loved that one.
I really liked it.
Out of this entire category, I feel like if I had to guess who might win, I would go from What Moves the Dead and then Even Though I Knew the End.
Yeah.
With it. I feel like Even Though I Knew the End has gotten a lot of buzz, and it's a standalone. It was a very strong novella. I was quite impressed at how much I liked it.
I will say that I do feel like the religious theming of that book may actually hinder it from winning the category. Because I do feel like that for some people, the religious imagery may be a deal breaker.
Could be.
Yeah. I personally, like, for example, I was due to my own background, I'm always a little bit like scared when books have a lot of religious theming in them. But in this, I think it was done really well, and it felt congruent with the whole like way the world building was set up and stuff. It made sense to me. But I do know that some people are more sensitive to that, especially if they have like religious trauma or if they are deeply religious still.
This is unrelated, but I was adding it to my list of things to read because I haven't done that yet, or I haven't read it yet. And I noticed so it's available on audiobook, which is like my preferred format right now because I can clean and chase a small child while I do that. A lot of other publishers don't put their novellas on audio format.
I will say that Tor.com novellas are like almost always
on.
Yeah, I'll also add that like Solaris for me, I can't get those books through my the ebooks through Overdrive, and that is something that really hinders me from trying their stuff out. Is like I've put in requests for some of the novellas that they published last year, but like then they disappeared and like I haven't seen them or my library. And the library where I do my Overdrive through is normally very good about buying like small press or indie published. Like they have Uncommon Charm, for example. Like they have some Neon Hemlock stuff, but they don't have Solaris.
Interesting.
I will say that out of the other novellas on this, Into the Riverlands by Nivo, I don't think is going to win. Personally, like I loved it. I loved it, but I also like love the Singing Hills cycle anyway. But I think that because it is such like very strongly, it's a wuxia martial arts battle story, like much more than any of the previous ones. It's like
oh no, I'm even more excited to read it.
Yeah, it's like deeply like this whole like it's very much in the vein of like for Western audiences like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, that sort of thing. Like it's a very much that sort of like hidden identities and bandits and like different forms of like storytelling and like living legends and all that stuff. And it's like centered around these big, larger than life like martial arts characters essentially. Yeah, and I think that may not work for some readers.
I really enjoyed the theme, what it was saying in this particular one. I've seen a lot of people say it's, kind of their least favorite. Maybe they think it's not quite the strongest out of the 3 published so far, but it's by no means bad.
No, definitely not.
Like I did high with the first one.
Like it's not bad, but it didn't hit. Like for me, Empress of Salt and Fortune is my favorite. Like I loved what it was doing and talking about empire and talking about who's remembered, and just that for me hit so much harder. And this one, like it was fine. I enjoyed the writing. I thought the world building that Nivo did was interesting, but the story that she was telling was not my favorite.
Here's the thing. I think that with Nivo, because like I've read like at this rate like 90% of all the stuff she's written. I think at this point she just competes with herself in terms of like because her quality is always like even the books that I consider like, well, this hasn't been the best. I always compare it to, well, this isn't the best she has written, but then it's like still up and above of some or all of the other things that I've read. So it's like I when I think about Nivo's writing, I always compare her to what else she has written rather than what else other people have written, if that makes sense.
Oh,
oh no.
She decided to join.
Hey, sweet girl.
She wanted some love.
Chubby cheeks.
No Hermes for me.
I don't know what her brother's up to.
Last I saw Hermes, he was played in like a starfish position in the bed.
Okay. Novelette?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I will say none of my things made the list.
I don't think I Oh man, did I nominate anything in these? Okay, so the best novelette finalists are The Difference Between Love and Time by Catherine M. Valente, A Dream of Electric Mothers by Wole Talabi, If You Find Yourself Speaking to God, Address God with the Informal You by John Chu, Murder by Pixel, Crime and Responsibility in the Digital Darkness by S.L. Huang, The Space-Time Painter by Hai Ya, and We Built This City by Marie Vibert. Before we dive into thoughts on some of these, I just want to preface with some information about a few of these stories if you're looking to find them online. As far as we know, there are no English translations available for any of the Chinese stories that were nominated in Novelette and Best Short Story. But if anybody manages to dig up a version, please let us know. Catherine M. Valente's story, The Difference Between Love and Time, and then the Wole Talabi story, A Dream of Electric Mothers. They were published in anthologies, but I believe that both of them are available for free to read on Tor.com. As of recently, they've been reprinted there, in case you were hunting them down.
Question. I thought, and this might be that I'm out of date, that all of the categories had a release in English requirement.
That's a great question. We were talking about this last time we were talking about potential nominees. I'm confused at this point. I always thought that there needed to be an English
release. I know that that's the case, at least in novel and novella.
I do know that when a book has been translated, the translated work becomes nominable eligible in the year that it has been translated to English.
I was always under the impression that a book was that works were eligible when they were originally published in the original language, and then also when they're translated.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people had that misconception and found out about, as Ron says, lots of people found that out this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a thing that I'm upset about. Just I thought that was a requirement in
any language. That would as a Finnish person, I would have probably nominated some Finnish works in 2017 if that were the case.
Yeah, a misconception a lot of people have had, just because it's, everybody's treated it like an English language only award.
Yeah.
Which again, not an issue, right? I think we should have.
Yeah, and they actually, as LKM says, they actually had Chinese character limits for the short fiction categories this year, precisely for this reason.
Once again, I'm really hopeful for the Hugo voter packet. If we manage to get any of those stories, I would love to read them. There was some confusion based on the kind of leaked shortlist that wasn't finished. There was a different story, I think that was in Best Short Story, that somebody thought had been published in Clark's World. It got mixed up with something. It was not actually that one. And I believe somebody said there was another one that had an English language publication, but it's not online. Nobody's tracked it down yet. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I won't be surprised if they get a lot of them nominated, just knowing how active the community has been in pushing getting a Chinese Worldcon.
Yeah.
This is what I was looking for. I wanted to see representation of some of these things being published right now in the Chinese SFF. So I would love to be able to read them.
Yeah,
I will say that there isn't that much. Considering, I thought that there would be much more representation of actual Chinese SFF published in China right now. In other categories than the short fiction ones.
We might get something Chinese in Best Novel.
Yeah.
And it did not happen. Well, where again, very interested to see the long list.
Yeah.
Does somebody have something close to their microphone?
That might be my printed list.
Yeah, it doesn't sound.
Sorry.
LKM, I would love to know more. Where was the English translation published? I would like to know. Okay, so thoughts on the novelettes?
I have read one of
any
these.
Of them, so.
I have read A Dream of Electric Mothers by Wole Talabi. And I'm surprised to see that one nominated because I think there were other novelette-length stories in Africa Risen that I thought would be nominated and weren't. So, but I'm happy that that something from that collection actually made the shortlist because that collection was excellent. And if you haven't read it, I definitely would recommend you pick it up because there were some excellent things in it. Others I haven't read.
I have some thoughts since I did try to sit down and read all of the ones that were available online. I didn't find A Dream of Electric Mothers online in time for the live show, but I will be reading it on tour. If you find yourself speaking to God by John Chu, I believe was the Nebula winner.
Yes.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So I actually prioritized reading this one this morning. I don't particularly love this story. I got to be honest. It reminds me very much of another story by John Chu, and I cannot remember where I read it. It features a lot of like guys in a gym working on their muscles, and I say it like that because that's the aspect of the story that I'm just not.
Rhea, your
not as
muscles are
into
ripped.
it. There's way
I
more
go
to
to the
story
gym
than
3
that.
times a week.
But that framing of the story, like that aspect of it, is really similar to another story I read by John Chu, which was actually about like body dysmorphia. Very interesting idea, but I don't react well to it in stories. I don't really care to read about that. So there you go. I also think that it's only like nominally spec fic. But it's John Chu's style of spec fic, so there's usually that one element that's a little bit like magical realism or a little bit of a fantastical twist, and I tend to read that and think it's not, but really.
There's an interesting, like Angela says, that I think the issue is in anthologies and collections figuring out whether it's a short story or novelette. Yeah, that's true. I think in recent years, the only short story collection that I have read that has actually included the word count in every single story has been the one that we buddy read, Rachel, that Jonathan Strawn, Tales from the Anthropocene.
Oh yeah.
Included word counts for all of the stories, which made it really easy come nominating time because I could just go like, oh, this is a short story and this is a novelette.
Yeah. Angela, I don't know if it's exactly that it was kind of like a superhero story, if that's what you're talking about with the John Chu one. It's that it's got that one fantastical element. You know, his first story that I read, I think it was also Hugo winner, The Water That Falls on You from Nowhere. Does anybody remember that story?
Yep.
And it kicked off a huge firestorm that year in the short story category about along with the Rachel Swirsky story, I think the one about
the dinosaurs.
One. Like, what is spec fic enough? Yeah, I won't get into. I don't have strong opinions on that one, but
that's the thing, like Kristen, that the word count only is relevant for people who follow the award scenes and only very specifically like these kinds of awards, because let's say, for example, I don't think like the literary fiction awards actually have like word count requirements for most of the stuff. For example, I don't think Booker has, the Man Booker Prize, I don't think has. So it's a very niche audience. Like, obviously I would want to know that, but that's because I'm in the trenches for the like award following
but
stuff.
I could see it for like anthologies published by SFF publishers, like Solaris and Tor. Like that definitely. For me, that doesn't make sense. Or like with magazines, they might not publish the word count, and that's another place where it's like your audience are people who care about the Hugos. Like you might want to put in your word count.
I think like for most like for example, I think Faya, Choreo, and Uncanny all release the word counts.
Clark's World does too.
Yeah. So I think in the like like in the magazines, like especially like for example semi-pro zines and then the professional magazines, like they do release the word counts.
Mhm.
And usually
just
they
harder
also
to
like
find than it-
determine like whether the like for example they usually like say if a story is a novelette or a novella.
Mhm. Mhm.
it's harder to find when it should be regardless. But I feel
Yes.
that way about like the editor that works on a book too. It can be so hard to find out which editor worked on which book.
Mhm.
I mean,
And there's a whole award just for that. So
I do remember once like basically like using Calibri to transfer an EPUB into a PDF so I could copy paste the thing to Word just so I could use the like counter to count the words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And that way
And-
I found out that the short story I thought was a short story was actually novelette length. But
Yeah.
this was like a couple years ago.
I think novelette is a really difficult one for people to judge. Like you can usually go, oh, this has got to be long enough. It's a novella, or this is so short. It must be short fiction.
Yeah.
I want to say that Nebula Awards, there was a novelette by Kat Rambo that got nominated, only for them to find out after they had announced everything that when it was edited, it had lost words. So the actual published version was too short to be novelette. So they dropped it from the list. So it can happen.
I think they're also for like the kind of fringe cases between novel and novella, because Spear, for example, that's one where you look at it and you're like, oh, it's pretty short. It's probably a novella, and it's not. Same
It's a
with Nettle and
novel.
Bone.
I will say that one thing that kind of makes me a little sad is that the a short history of the Bainacan disasters wasn't like didn't make the short list. It was in the Way Spring Arrives collection, and I nominated it for the novelette category, but it did not make it.
So other ones from this category that I've read and my thoughts, I feel like I haven't read everything, obviously. There are two that I haven't read here, but this is a really strong category. The Difference Between Love and Time by Catherine M. Valente. I actually really enjoyed this one. It's kind of it's from a Jonathan Strahan anthology, like quantum time travel love stories or something. So it's about a woman and her lifetime romance with a person who's basically the space-time continuum personified. It's bizarre, but I found it really fun to read, and it's kind of poignant in places too. I read it very much like this is what chaotic romantic relationships are like, and giving, just, and it's all timey-wimey too.
I think I've recently actually really liked Valente's short fiction, because last year I read the Orpheus and Eurydice kind of retelling sort of
And I
thing,
like
and
that
I
one
really
too.
like that.
Yeah.
Like also the whole like idea of like like basically being like a caretaker for a disabled person kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and also like how that can lead to like this sort of toxic behavior models and stuff like that. I think that was done marvelously, and
I think
like
this is another
really
story,
relatable.
yeah, another story by Valente where I feel like her style, her very ornate style, works great with the subject matter. It's just
Yeah.
And maybe I'm kind of leaning towards thinking that I prefer Valente's style maybe more in short fiction. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
and
would
also
definitely
like
recommend that.
and also anytime Apollo appears and is an asshole is like
Yeah. Another excellent one is Murder by Pixel by S.L. Huang. I'm pretty sure I heard about this one originally from Paul, who's in the chat. This is written like a journalistic piece investigating a woman who is suspected of having created an AI chatbot thingy that has killed people, but maybe also helped them. So it's really digging into like the laws, like the responsibility around AI and who makes them and who's really in control of them, and the garbage in, garbage out idea. If you train AI on the worst things on the internet and then it goes off and does bad things, who's responsible for that? I love everything the story encapsulates. It's very on trend. It's very relevant to today's discussions about AI and Chat GPT or whatever. So
Yeah.
well worth a read. It includes a lot of links within the story to real world pieces about AI. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, it's there. And then We Built This City by Marie Weber, which I think may also have been it was a Nebula nominee. Also an excellent one about workers in a floating city in Venus. And basically they take a stand against the corporation that's cutting their manpower, making them work longer hours. And, basically it's a workers' rights story. And I thought it was great. I think it ended a little bit too abruptly, but it was really strong.
Did we have any ones in the novelette category that were strictly Chinese, that weren't published in English?
In novelette?
In novelette.
The Space-Time Painter by Hai Ya.
Okay.
It's from Galaxy's Edge, which I believe is one of the really popular Chinese publications. Yeah. But given how much I enjoyed other things in this category, I really want to read the other two that I haven't gotten to, including that one.
I mean, best novelette and best short story are probably the categories that I want to try and get to, like, read the various nominees, because like last year when I was doing all of the, like, basically all the short fiction categories for the Hugo Awards and making videos about them, I really enjoyed that experience. So.
Yep. Anybody else read some of these, have thoughts?
Dream of Electric Mothers is a good story.
I'm using novelette and short story to sit back and listen and recharge because I haven't read any of them.
Same.
All right. If anybody
I'm
needs to take a break,
saving all my
by the
talking
way.
for best series.
Yeah.
Oh yes, geez, best series. Yes, okay.
So we are approaching our usual 2-hour mark. I think we will probably continue on a little bit if everyone's okay with that. But now would be a great time to take a bio break and get up and move around a little bit if you need to.
On that note, I am being called away, but I really enjoyed being here, and thank you guys for letting me talk to you.
Thanks for stopping by,
Yeah,
Bree.
thanks for joining.
My greetings to the small one, to the young.
Yes, I have been brought a. Huh?
Say hello to the kidlet for us.
I will. I have been brought a wheelie turtle and a small toddler-sized wagon, so I think my time is.
The child is ready for shenanigans.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
See you.
Right, bye.
Okay.
All right. So like 5-minute break.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. If everyone will wait for us, our audience, we're going to take a quick little break and then we will resume with best short story.
Yes.
Yep.
Please use this opportunity to get a beverage and use the bathroom.
And move around a little bit if you've been sitting for 2 hours like we have. We'll be
Yes.
back.
I have finagled us a cat appearance. He's making biscuits on the floor. It's a hard floor, but he's like,
He's not
He's
sulking.
got to pay his rent somehow.
yes. Go be adorable. Do your thing. Now he's like, I'm not amused.
I have also arranged a cat appearance, although it was less of a finagling and more of waking her up and scooping her.
It's great that Jamie is a scoopable cat because I cannot scoop Hermes.
She'd been scooped.
She's just so chill. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
Jamie
love
is like a
her.
really chill cat.
yeah.
She's not fully awake from her nap, I don't think. She's wondering why she's there.
Luke
She was
is
deep
napping.
asleep. I was petting her and she wasn't waking up.
I
Luke
started
is currently napping in my bedroom, and I didn't feel like disturbing him because he was being super cute.
speaking and Hermes's face immediately went to suspicious. Are you
I'm-
socializing?
I am so mean. I was so mean. I know, Miss Jammy Pants.
Maybe you want to go and sleep on the thing. Do you want to come here? I will arrange your bedding.
Okay.
And we have a hat change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not?
All
We
right.
should have a
Handling
quiz.
the 2020 Hugo Award ceremony.
We should have a
Yep,
quiz
yep.
quiz at the end of all our live streams, like how many cat appearances and how many hat changes.
Yeah. Best short story. This will probably be a quick one because 4 of the 6 in this category are Chinese stories that we don't have access to right now. So the nominees in this category are DIY by John Wiswell, On the Razor's Edge by Zhang Bo, Rabbit Test by Samantha Mills, Resurrection by Ren Qing, and The White Cliff by Lu Ban, and Zhurong on Mars by Regina Kanyu Wang. So
think
DIY is in Tor, and Rabbit Test is on Canny Magazine. They're both available online to read.
And Resurrection does have an English translation, but
Yes,
I, for
sounds
one,
like it was an
don't.
anthology.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like where it's accessible at the moment.
In what
Okay.
anthology?
I don't know. I think it was LKM that said it was an anthology. We'll find out. So I read DIY and Rabbit Test, and wow, these two are not on the same level for me.
Tell us more, Rachel.
So DIY it's a very short story for a very complex idea, which is basically 2 people who want to teach themselves magic but are kind of denied entry to a magical academy. They basically nerd out and try to solve a water crisis and a drought on their own. And, you know, it deals with corporations and patents and also
Capitalism.
a lot of isms. And there's so much in the story. And I feel like it could have been a novel. Like there are some ideas in this that are really interesting, but it also felt a little bit like a knockoff of almost like a Harry Potter, I want to grow up to be a wizard type of story, but with a cold dose of reality and disability. I tend to like Wiswell's stuff, but this one just, it was okay. It felt kind of like a fluff piece almost, but I didn't think that the topic deserved that. So yeah. Rabbit Test was a very hard read. This one is basically an imagining of a future up through the 2090s where rabid anti-abortion movements have won out politically, and the story deals with some difficult things, including rape, sexual assault, unwanted pregnancy, forced pregnancy, that sort of thing. It's very appropriate given the times, but also because of the times, I just found it very difficult to read. So I don't know if anybody else here read it.
I have not read any of the stories in this category, and none of my nominations made it to the list.
So
Because
okay, and said Rabbit Test was a Nebula nominee.
Don't eat it.
So
Sorry.
Did you win the Nebula?
I don't remember.
Or am I misremembering?
It's a good question.
Mm,
It's difficult to say like my predictions in this category. Like my overall feelings are I just don't know enough about it. But yeah, Rabbit Test I think has a strong chance, and would love to know more about the other stories. I get the feeling
where I think
from the
it
titles
will
of the
be-
others, the Chinese stories seem like they might be more science fictional, which I would like to read. I feel like the other category has been very heavy on fantasy, actually, and I miss my hard sci-fi stories.
I'm sorry.
This is where, and again, I'm not commenting on the actual stories because I haven't read any of them, but where the category is so divided between the English language works and the Chinese language works that it's just like, I don't think it would be fair to any of these nominees if translations didn't happen, because if you have all of the English language voters picking between the two stories and all of the Chinese language voters picking between the other ones, that's just not a fair playing field.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. So could be a very interesting category overall. We'll get more information hopefully about that.
I definitely want to see the long list for this category, because I read a lot of short fiction last year, like a lot. So I had like a full ballot for like my nominations for this category, and I would be interested to see how many stories like kind of missed out and by what percentage. Because like last year was a really good year for short fiction, like seriously.
Yeah.
Like there was some really amazing stuff out there. And not saying that none of like these aren't, but like
I think with short fiction, I'm mostly looking forward to the long list because of how relatively few nominations it takes, because of how much short fiction is published and how much like different things people will nominate. Because like looking at, because I have the long list up from last year. Yeah, like for short fiction last year, the most nominations something got was 96. And the cutoff was between 44 for Sin of America by Catherine Valenti and then 38 for The Cold Calculations by Amy Ogden. So it'll be interesting to see like what was there.
Mm-hmm.
And in these categories, like basically the like even one nomination like really makes a difference.
Oh yeah.
Because like I think novella and novel are probably the most nominated and most voted on categories in general.
Mm-hmm. Shall we move on to best series?
Yes.
Another one we have thoughts on.
Mhm.
I'll let you guys talk about this because I don't actually have an opinion on any of this.
I have a
opinions
huge
are not-
opinion to start.
Is it about a certain series that takes
Yes.
place in the United Kingdom? I also have some feelings for it.
Well, that too, but
well,
there's-
let's let Rachel read the
Let me
nominees
read the
before we get
nominees.
into
Okay.
it.
So the best series finalists are the Children of Time series by Adrian Tchaikovsky, the Founders Trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett, The Locked Tomb by Tamsin Moore, October Day by Shannon McGuire, Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich, and The Scholomance by Naomi Novik.
Okay, can I start?
I knew Kristen
Yeah.
was going to ask that.
Why is Rivers of London on this shortlist and not
I know!
Dandelion Dynasty?
I know!
Why?
That's also where I'm at, is where is Dandelion Dynasty and why the fuck is Rivers of London here?
Who cares about Rivers of London? That's what I want to know. Since when has that been relevant?
Rivers of London has been nominated in this category before, I think.
I know
Before,
almost
yes,
nothing
but,
about
like-
that series except that like years ago it was all the rage on BookTube, I think. So I see where that there must still be people who care.
Okay, but
long
here's the thing.
series.
I could not get past book 1 because of how misogynistic it was. Like, it is, I haven't read any more of the series. I don't know if it's like Dresden File levels bad, but it was still pretty bad.
I've read the first 3, and I actually I will say that when I read the first one, I quite liked it. However, it is one of those series that the way the women are written are basically she boobily walked across the boob room, like that is just how the women are written in that series. Like the amount at which women are just described by their bodily functions and body parts as opposed to the male characters who are described by their abilities is a stark contrast. Like that is just it just is.
I will also add that another reason I am going to be voting for this Below No Award is that the author has a history of inserting himself in reviewer spaces and went after 2 of my friends. And yes, this was several years ago, but like I keep a grudge spreadsheet. He's there. Yeah, I'm not impressed by this. I'm so upset the Dandelion Dynasty is there.
I mean,
isn't
okay,
there. Like
I get Rivers of London is like popular. Like there's a reason why there's like 1 million books in that series. Like how many are there now? Like for probably over like 12 or something. Like it's a long-standing series, and I understand that it's also like but that said, like it has been popular before, but I don't hear anyone really talking about it nowadays. Like I thought that Dandelion Dynasty would have more traction because Ken Liu is like not only is he a good author, but he's like pretty like respected and like known in the SFF like the Hugo reading populace for his short fiction and also the translations he did for She's in Liu's work. So I would have assumed that Dandelion Dynasty would have more pull. Why?
I also have gripes about this list, but I have different gripes than you guys, given that I have absolutely no familiarity with the Rivers of London series, and so I have no opinions on it. Honestly, I don't even have that many gripes about most of the things on this list. I'm willing to try some of the ones that I haven't read. I definitely want to read Children of Time. I'm willing to give Foundry Side a try. I am reading the Locked Tomb series. I read the first October Day book last time it was nominated. I am willing to read the second one. Like I'll read one book in that series every time it's nominated.
Okay, I will. I feel so bad for being that asshole for saying this, but books 1 and 2 are like relatively weak compared to the rest of the series.
Read more books than 1 per time it's nominated. So if I need to get to book 3, I'm going to have to wait until the 3rd time it's nominated. And we can be patient. The two that I will not read are Rivers of London and The Scholomance. And this is going to be a spillover of my gripe about the Lodestar, which is that, like, the Scholomance series is a series that, based on their premise, I would not have picked up on my own anyways. But if Naomi Novik hadn't been accepting those Lodestar nominations and put such a sour taste in my mouth, I would be willing to give the first book a try for this series nomination. And because I have just lost faith in Naomi Novik because of the Lodestar, I am now not willing to pick up this series now that it's nominated in the series category, and that's just me. But my biggest sad here isn't a specific series that's not on the shortlist. I haven't actually read The Dandelion Dynasty. It's just that this was the category this year that I had so many things I wanted to nominate in that I could not fit them all in my nominations. This, like, I don't often have enough nominees in any particular category to actually fill up my nominations any given year. And this was the one where I was sitting there as it was counting down to midnight on the last night of nominations saying, like, which of my babies do I throw out? And nothing I wanted to nominate made it onto the shortlist.
I will say that I'm surprised that Kristin Kashor didn't make the...
I
nominated it.
I don't know, have we ever gotten a YA series on this list?
No, I'm pushing for it. But I think for me with Scholomance is... I will be reading at least the first book this year because Adri from Nerds of a Feather recommend, like, my 12 books from 12 Friends challenge. That was hers. So I might be reading it in August. I might not. I don't know. But if it's not one of the ones I pull, I'm not prioritizing that series.
Let's
I am a little frustrated about what?
I was just gonna say that I DNF'd the first one at around 17%.
My initial time through, I DNF'd it, but my problem was I read it in 2020. I was trying to read it in 2020, and I just, like, I don't know if when I was reading it, I was, like, necessarily in a good spot to be reading something, like, because I was reading it around a time I was doing a lot of rereads because, like, that's what my brain could handle.
Yeah.
I will say I'm on the fence about Bennett because I read his the first book in his other trilogy, The City of Stairs, and he fridged a gay man and then he fridged another queer woman at the start of the second book. So I DNF'd it. And it is, I know people like this series, but people also like series that don't treat female characters particularly well. So I'm also just kind of, well, I mean, I was thinking Patrick Rothfuss, but
well, you know.
But yeah, so, like, he's a white male author who I'm just kind of, like, super sus about. Also, he was rude to a friend of mine, so
I will say, I think prediction-wise, I think it's gonna be basically a toss between Tamsin Muir and probably Shannon Maguire, mostly because Shannon Maguire is a Hugo darling in any case, and the Locked Tomb has a lot of momentum right now. So I think it's gonna be Children of Time might make it. Like I think it's those three. I doubt Rivers of London is gonna take it, which makes me even more mad that it's on there. Because I don't believe in this category with these other, like, nominees, it has a chance of, like, a snowballs in hell.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the weakest of the nominees. Look who's back!
I tried to pick up Hermes earlier, and he unleashed his fury.
She came up to join me. I didn't pick her up, so.
In general, I wish that more people would consider YA series in best series. Obviously, the Graceling Realm is the big one here. I also believe that the Queen's Thief series was eligible one last time because of the story collections, and I nominated it. Just neither of those series ever getting this nod hurts me, because those are two like all-time favorite series for me. And the, I obviously we saw Akata Woman on the Lodestar list, but that series was also eligible in Best Series.
That would have been a great one for series too, just because I think like taken as a series and Sabiti's
And that kind of
really
feeds
strong
into my other big complaint about this specific category is just how fucking white it is. Like, there is no person of color on this list, and that I think is also why Dandelion Dynasty not being on here smart so much is I don't think like this is just such a white category. And I think overall the Hugos this year, except for like Lodestar and the short story categories, are just incredibly white, and it feels like a step backwards.
I also am under the impression that the Juya universe was eligible again this year, and I nominated that. I knew that the Red Scholar's Wake would have been a stretch to make it to Best Novel, given how late in the year it was released, but I was really hoping that that book would get recognition by putting Juya on the series then.
Red Scholar's Wake is a novel length?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa. I did not know that, in fact. I thought it was like a new novella in that series.
No, full novel. So yeah, I think there were a lot of worthy things that could have been on this list that I'm just... It's less that I'm particularly angry about any one. It's just that I'm sort of collectively sad that nothing I was particularly rooting for is here.
I feel like this is another category that was incredibly predictable. There are no surprises here. It's mostly notable for what isn't there.
Well, my biggest surprise is that what isn't there.
Yeah.
Like I would basically like switch out either Rivers of London or the Scholomance for Dandelion Dynasty, and also just to have a better series out there, let's add like Christine Cashore there as well, just for the genre diversity, if nothing else.
All right. Best graphic story?
Yes.
There's another one I really don't have any comments on.
Another category I'm sitting at, because not only have I not read
any of these,
I'm not going to.
Okay.
I have comments.
We'll let Rhea take this category. The nominees in Best Graphic Story or Comic are Cyberpunk 2077, Big City Dreams, Dune, the official movie graphic novel, Monstrous Volume 7, Devour, Once and Future Volume 4, Monarchies in the UK, Saga Volume 10, and Supergirl, A Woman of Tomorrow.
Okay, so Monstrous is a continued Hugo darling, as is Saga. I was completely not surprised to see not either of these on this category.
I nominated Monstrous for sure.
Saga was on hiatus for a time, and last year was the first volume that came out after the hiatus, if I remember correctly. So it made perfect sense. Like it was just gonna happen, bound to happen, that Saga would make the list. I am quite surprised about Cyberpunk 2077. Like, to be fair, all of the tie-in stuff to Cyberpunk 2077 have been better than the actual game. For example, the Edge Runners anime series, which I was actually surprised that didn't get nominated for any of the short form categories, but I digress. But like, I'm still surprised that like this many people read it, that it made the list. Dune, once again, like
it's Dune. It's related to Dune.
Like that, and also that's probably the reason why it might stand a chance of winning, because it's Dune. It's an adaptation. well, to be fair, it's an adaptation of an adaptation, so it's an adaptation of the movie, not the actual.
I'm not gonna lie, I
book.
might check that one out. I do like Dune-related stuff. I would like to see that. I didn't
Yeah,
even
I
know it
mean,
existed.
considering that the second movie is coming out in like November, some people might actually use this to like
Mhm.
pick up on the story rather than go watch the movie again. No thoughts on Supergirl because I have not read it. Once and Future, I have mixed feelings about Kieran Gillen in general. I don't think he is like with Once and Future with what the hell is the Die, and also with the damn
Wicked and Divine.
Weekend and that series. Like, I just continuously think that he is an overrated writer.
Wicked and Divine was actually quite good. I appreciated a lot about that, but I feel like just the concepts of stuff later on, it just I bounced off of it.
Yeah, LKM. Paper Girls was the other one that he wrote, and I also
No, Paper Girls was Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Brian K. Vaughan. Sorry, different K person. Anyway, yeah, but Kieran Gillen, I just no.
Yeah,
not for me.
I have not read Once and Future, but I bounced hard off of Die. Like that one, it did something that I particularly hate, and I wasn't able to get, like, the story wasn't enough where I was able to get past that.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that I was hoping for this year was that I was really hoping that I would have seen some manga make the Hugo shortlist. I was really hoping for Witch Hat Atelier or Chainsaw
Witch
Man.
Hat Atelier too. Yes.
I was or Delicious in Dungeon. I've been rooting for Delicious in Dungeon for a long time because it has, like, especially like, for example, people who like Travis Baldry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would fit so well with those readers, and I've just been like trying to push people to read that series, and I've just been like, please, because it deserves all the accolades. And I mean, I guess, Witch Hat Atelier already is an Eisner nominated darling, so I don't think Kamome Shirahama is like weeping for not getting a Hugo Award, but at the same time, I'm just like, can manga sometimes stand a chance? Because it just has like so much storytelling potential. Like,
in the past, wasn't The Girl from the Other Side nominated?
No, I don't think The Girl from the Other Side has ever been nominated. I mean, like it didn't make the short list. Okay. I have nominated it.
Yeah,
but I don't think it has. Like, I'm not sure if it has made the long list. But like,
I always feel bad that I never caught up on any manga series far enough to nominate current volumes, but it is shocking to me that there isn't enough of a manga readership to get some manga on this list sometimes.
I can't believe there isn't a readership. I think that there is, and people just don't think to nominate manga in this category for some reason.
It is eligible, please.
Yeah.
Some kaiju is saying the world is waiting for the Witch Hat Atelier anime. Yes, it is airing. Yeah. I think it is airing either late this year or early next year, and depending on when it starts airing, I will be pushing for the short form category. In like the short form dramatic presentation, I will be pushing episodes because already, because the studio that is animating it, I have high hopes, and all the voice actors that have been announced for the characters are just perfect. So can't wait to see it. But yeah, that's my piece. I'm really disappointed in this category this year because it's just such a run-of-the-mill mid-safe choices category that this list makes perfect sense in that it is not surprising at all, and it is kind of like, it is not a diverse showing of what is actually out there in genre graphic novels and like comics at this moment.
I'm still happy about Monstrous though.
I mean, but yeah, but Yeah. But also Monstrous has won.
Monstrous has won. Yeah,
Like
it's
so many times that at this point I kind of wish that they would recuse themselves just so, you know,
maybe. At least I'm assured there will be like one thing in this category that I have read and that I liked.
yeah.
I really need to get back to Saga though. I'm one of those people who really, really enjoyed Saga, and I'm glad that it's back after its 2-year hiatus. I just haven't gotten back into it.
Yeah.
Hello, Claire. Thank you. All right. Any final thoughts on best graphic story? I will say that the
That was my
only
piece.
thing aside from Monstrous that I remember nominating in this category that I felt strongly about was Mamo by Sass Millage, but I knew that that was a long shot because it's basically YA and it's a standalone graphic novel. So I didn't have a chance, but I nominated it anyway.
I nominated Bolero for this category as well. But I understand that not many people had read it. I also nominated Cottontails by
Another
Jessica
one
Cioffi.
that I would love to know if Across a Field of Stars is on the long list, because I know a lot of people read that last year and enjoyed it, and it was very queer, very diverse, just a lovely graphic novel.
Yeah.
I really hope to see it on this list too, but no. Okay. Best related work.
I have some thoughts, but let's have Rachel read the nominees before we.
Yes.
Okay. So best related work finalists are Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, The Wild and True Story of Mad Max Fury Road by Kyle Buchanan, Buffalito World Outreach Project by Lawrence M. Schoen, Chinese Science Fiction and Oral History Volume 1 by Yang Feng, The Ghost of Workshops Past by S.L. Huang, Still Just a Geek, an annotated memoir by Will Wheaton, and Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes by Rob Wilkins. My only thought on this category, I'll go first, is I'm very, very sure I haven't read any of these, but I did preemptively nominate Terry Pratchett's biography by Rob Wilkins because I bought a copy and I want to read it, and I will be reading it in August with Joe. So
I do have a feeling that Terry Pratchett stands a chance of winning just for the Terry Pratchett. Just like when the illustrated illustrated Tales of the Earthsea won one year.
Best art book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Ursula K. Le Guin.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised how many books are in this category. I was really hoping that we'd get a video essay or something.
Mm-hmm.
This seems like a very book.
It's mid.
Heavy.
It's safe.
Yeah.
The only one that I'm super excited about is S.L. Wong's essay, because I thought that was really, really good.
I really want to read that, yeah. And that's tor.com, I think, so you can read it for free.
If I understand correctly, Chinese science fiction and oral history is only available in Chinese at this stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
That's one that could be very interesting, that perspective. Yeah. Does anybody know what Buffalito is?
Nope.
I did not have a chance to research this before we started. I was like, what is it? If somebody in the comments knows, please let me know. I know who Lawrence M. Schoen is, but I have no idea what this Buffalito World Outreach Project is. So
I will also say that I have no interest in the Will Wheaton memoir. Zero, nada interest.
I don't follow Will Wheaton, so I don't really have an opinion.
I just have a grudge against him because he audiobooks are the way that I would want to consume Scalzi books, because they would make it easier, and Will Wheaton narrates 99% of all of them, and I hate his narration style.
Oh dear.
So he's gatekeeping a whole author from me by sucking at audiobook narration.
Related work is a category I tend to skip. I generally don't bother with it. I do think I read the S.L. Huang piece, but I think I read it on my phone on a train, and it didn't stick. I don't remember it.
Claire says a lot of these are only available in English. Yeah, but that wasn't a criticism about like Chinese science fiction being only available in Chinese. It was more notice that if people are trying to search the book to read it, it is only available in Chinese at this moment.
So Rachel says there is a series of novellas with a character that is a buffalito. I don't know what a buffalito is. Is it? It's science fiction, but it's in best related work.
I
What?
have no idea.
Quick search. What is a buffalito?
Oh,
it's
it looks,
food. What?
it looks like the author Lawrence M. Schoen has a series of science fiction, and then the related work might be about that series.
Okay, but what?
Buffalito? Is this a thing?
When I search buffalito, I just get Buffalo Wild Wings.
I get like various weird Indiegogo and Kickstarter campaigns for weirdly suspicious tech projects.
So this looks
Buffalito
like the
smart
author's
lamp.
project to have his Buffalito series translated into as many languages as possible.
So it's a translation project?
Yes,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay.
I feel like this was one where it was added after, like it was one of the things that wasn't on the initial.
It was, but the thing that was on the initial list was published in the wrong year, which is why it wasn't eligible. I think.
Huh. Okay, that one's worth more investigation for buffalitos, I guess.
Interesting.
I do like when kind of oddball things show up in this category.
Yes.
Okay. Dramatic presentation times.
Yes,
Yes.
I have thoughts.
Okay. Do we want to lump together long form and short form, or do you want to talk
Yes,
about
I am fine with that.
I'm fine with lumping.
Okay, so I will read all of these long form and short form finalists. So we have Avatar, The Way of Water, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Nope, Severance Season 1, Turning Red, Andor, One Way Out, Andor, Rick's Road, The Expanse, Babylon's Ashes, For All Mankind, Stranger in a Strange Land, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Whose Show Is This? And Stranger Things, Chapter 4, Dear Billy. Take it away.
Okay.
Yes.
First,
Who the hell nominated Avatar?
Yeah, I have. Well, the fact that Avatar was on the initial shortlist, the leaked shortlist, and Black Panther wasn't.
Considering that Avatar: The Way of Water made like bucket loads of money, it was able to recoup its whole budget, which was ginormous. I'm not surprised that it got nominated because it was probably one of the things that people actually saw.
I'm not
Last
surprised
year.
either. I do think it might have been the only thing on this list that got a wide release in China, so that might have given it a
Yes.
boost.
It was very popular in China as well,
Mm.
like insanely popular. That's why I'm also actually like basically predicting that next year the Little Mermaid adaptation might actually, like the live action adaptation, might make it to the short list on long form, based because it's like very popular currently in China and Japan and Korea. Anyway, so because like the current Chengdu members will have I think nomination rights for next year as well. Yeah. So anyway,
I hope they use it.
Yeah, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I'm very happy to see it here. I really liked the movie. I know that it had some people were not happy about certain aspects of it, but I personally really enjoyed it. And I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is gonna take this category, like the long form. I think that's actually gonna win.
I think
And,
it's probably going to win too.
Yeah.
And also,
It won an Oscar. How could it not win a Hugo?
Yeah, I mean, also I'm surprised but very happy to see Turning Red on this.
Same.
I am, I guess, pleased that Turning Red is on here. I thought last year, I am normally someone who is nominating lots of animated stuff in the dramatic presentation categories, but I thought last year was a generally weak year for animated films. Oh, we have an Ava!
Every single pet has made an appearance except Luke.
Yeah, Luke is being a butthead right now. Luke is prioritizing his piece.
Luke does not want to be perceived.
Beautiful honorary cat. Steve Luke.
Ava has like a
You can
massive
see Leia
pet
in the
head.
background still.
Yes.
Yes, her hair is crazy. She gets groomed this next week. So
Oh, does she get a little bow when she gets groomed?
she has before. Yeah, she gets like a little one behind her ear.
Oh.
Anyways, I'm still pleased that Turning Red is on here, but like looking forward to next year, I've already seen 3 animated films this year that I liked better than anything that was released last year. So
Yeah, same. And also like Across the Spider-Verse is probably going to be on next year's ballot.
that's one of my 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I have conflicted feelings about it because at the same time, like, it's a great movie and I want to be able to nominate it, but also it was basically like crunch time was heavily involved in the making of it, and their abuse that the whole creative team basically had to go through was really sucky. So I'm like very conflicted about whether I would want to nominate it. That said, it's probably going to end up being there.
I believe there were things to say about Andor.
Yes,
I am very
Andor-
excited that Andor has 2 shots.
I would have hoped that Andor would have been nominated in the long form for the whole season.
And we know, are we talking about things on the leaked shortlist? I think we are, which were, or are we being polite and pretending we didn't see it? Because
No, we saw it.
We saw it. There were 2 series that were initially nominated in both categories, which is not allowed, and they had to choose which one they wanted to be nominated in. Andor must have chosen short form over long form.
Yeah. I will say that out of these 2, like, these are both very good episodes for Andor, though. So I'm very torn about which one I would vote for.
Yeah, I'll probably have them as 1 and 2.
I haven't seen anything on short form yet, and like the very selfish reason I'm bummed that Andor is in short form instead of long form is that it's the only thing on the short form list that's on my watch list. So that would tell me normally that I would just skip that category if I was only going to watch one show, whereas I've seen multiple things in long form already. But I might just watch Andor and
I will say one of my comments regarding that time is a weird construct right now. The Expanse Babylon's Ashes, I can't believe, did it come out last year?
Yes.
Because I was under the impression
it was at the very end of the year, I think. Time is strange. I feel like it was longer ago than that.
I thought that The Expanse was ended like the year before, like 2021. And now you're telling me there's like episodes that came out in 2022.
The book series ended and it was last eligible last year. Did it win?
Yeah, but
no, because it already won. It had already won Best Series, so it wasn't eligible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is for the TV show.
Yeah,
so that's what.
Yeah, I concluded.
But Rachel was talking about the book series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I was like under the impression that the TV series ended in 2021, but apparently like this came out this episode in January.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like me was being like mind blown because I was just like what? Also,
Yeah.
could
December to January.
Could have switched the She-Hulk episode for an episode of Chainsaw Man in this category. I'm just saying.
I have no sense of how popular the She-Hulk series is.
I
but
was
pretty
actually
to see it here.
surprised that She-Hulk got on because I had heard kind of mixed things about it.
There were good parts in it, but overall it was a very mixed bag. Especially like the last episode.
Yeah.
I'm
actually surprised that Star Trek Strange New Worlds wasn't on there instead of She-Hulk. I think that for me was the surprise.
Also, Stranger Things Chapter 4 Dear Billy made the list, and that's actually a pretty decent episode of Stranger Things, so...
I didn't realize that Stranger Things was still ongoing.
Yeah!
It's really out of touch.
Yeah, and the latest season has been probably one of the better seasons too. Like, I would say that season 4 has been better. Like, I would rank them like season 1 being the best, season 4 second, season 3, and then season 2 being the worst.
I stopped after season 2. I just wasn't.
Season 2 was
I tried
garbage.
to watch season 3, but I noped out pretty hard early in season 3 because some stuff was happening that I was not enjoying.
Yeah, it's also season 3 has a lot of body horror, a lot.
I could not make it past.
Not touching that.
Season 4 also has a lot of body horror. No, season 5 is still coming.
How long are they going to go? Are they going to go until they can't pass
season
off
5 is
after?
the last
Season
one.
5 is gonna be the last one,
So
and it's gearing up
anymore.
towards like a really epic like conclusion. Basically,
Okay.
like basically season 4 ended on a huge like apocalyptic cliffhanger. Like I have issues with Stranger Things because it like the way it portrays the 80s is a very particular kind of 80s that it portrays. For example, in this world, there is no mention of the AIDS crisis, and it's very suspicious considering that one of the characters in the main cast is gay, or she's a lesbian, and there's no like, she's what I would call like kind of a gay in a vacuum, where basically there's this one queer character surrounded by a bunch of straight characters, and there's no like discussion on any of like issues that queer people were dealing with at the time, like the AIDS crisis or Reagan's administration.
Wait, on a slightly more flippant note, though, the only thing that I am currently grateful to Stranger Things for is getting Running Up That Hill back on the radio, because I freaking love that song.
It's a good song.
It's a good song.
And there's so many covers now.
I know.
Kim Petras made a cover
too. But I heard it in the original when I was a child, and then I had quite a fondness for the placebo version for a number of years.
What I found funny was that TikTok was trying to like come for Kate Bush for ripping off placebo for her own song.
No,
that was like the weirdest drama that happened.
I don't think you could accuse Kate Bush of ripping anybody off. She is her own thing through and through. Oh my gosh.
That was like the funniest thing, like also kind of sad.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, are we done with dramatic presentation? Any more?
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I don't think.
Okay. We are getting
wishing for anime.
Yeah. So we've got about 20 minutes until our 3-hour mark, which I feel like would probably be a good time to wrap up.
Yes, and it's almost midnight here, so and I have to go to work tomorrow.
I will say the only ones that we haven't talked about that I have some feelings about are semi-prosing, fanzine, and fancast.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think
are those the ones we want to finish?
Okay, do you have any thoughts on the best editor categories?
I will say that I'm very happy to see Sheree Renee Thomas and Ogenecheva Donald Ekpeki. They did an amazing job with the Africa Resin anthology, so I'm glad that they are in this category. Kind of sad that Regina Carney Wang didn't make it, because she also did pretty excellent for the
I would love
Wastebringer
to
rights.
see the long list for that, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And I think Huan Yan and Haijun Yao are Chinese editors for long
Could
form.
be.
So I haven't really heard of them. Roshi Chen is a Nivo's editor. Really happy to see.
I think that I
Her.
nominated Roshi Chen.
Yeah,
based
me too.
on
I
just trying to
nominated
find
her.
editors of my favorite books of the year. So, yeah. So what I can tell about both short form and long form best editor is they look like strong categories. The names that I'm familiar with, I'm like, yeah, good job.
Yeah. Regarding best professional artist, Xi Jiahong and Kuri Huang both made it. Paul Lewin made it. Alyssa Vinans made it. So there are already 4 out of 6 that I know and are like freaking great and awesome. So this is a really like probably one of the strongest like professional artist ballots that I've seen in like a few years. Like I'm just looking at the names and being like, yeah, all of these are like top tier.
The only name that I could really wish for in Best Professional Artist these days is Victo Nai, but I don't think she's done a lot of eligible work in the field.
Well, she's
Also, Victor Nai has
she's
been
doing like the new covers for the Percy Jackson books.
Oh, there is
that
that. You're right.
released last year.
Yeah.
So
I think they were eligible this year because of the Percy Jackson stuff and a lot of other things. Like they also did the new covers for the Divergent series and stuff like They are
cool
really
enough
freaking
that
awesome.
for like half a millisecond in the Barnes and Noble, I was almost tempted to read Divergent.
Yeah, same. Because Victor Nye covers. That's the kind of pull they have. And then I realized that no, I'm not touching Veronica
as
Roth.
much as I love Victor Nye's work, I'm not gonna
I'm not gonna subject myself to Veronica Roth, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so best professional artist. I'm going to jump forward really quickly to fan artist. If anybody has thoughts on that,
best fan artist.
Laya Rose was on my nomination list. I like her stuff. I don't recognize anybody else.
Me neither, really.
All right.
Elise on Live asks, random question, but web novels are hugely popular outside of America, but do you think they could count for a category, and if so, which? I think they only count if there is a print publication of them. For example, Lore Olympus has been eligible when volumes were published. Right now, for example, there are a bunch I think Under the Oak Tree, for example, is getting published next year. I think the first volumes are coming out.
And in like the last year or two, a bunch of like Chinese BL web novels have been picked up for translation, and some of those were eligible in series this year.
Yes.
I nominated Have an Official's Blessing, but clearly not enough people, are thinking about those in those categories at this point. But definitely, if there are multiple volumes, if there are enough of them to get up to series, clearly eligible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the best series, the problem becomes the word count, I guess. Like, how do you count that in a graphic novel? Like, basically.
Well, web novels and web comics are.
Oh,
I think
sorry. I misread and thought about web novels, but I read webtoons. But anyway, Under the Oak Tree is still eligible because it has been picked up and has an official translation and is should have nominated that this year, but I thought that it's a little too
definitely
graphic, I
web
guess.
comics have made the ballot before when they've been published in book form, like Lore Olympus last year.
Yeah. Sorry, I misread.
Yeah. Should I go back and read the nominees? I completely forgot to do that for.
Which category? Best fan writer?
Editor.
Or best fan artist?
We can maybe move on to
Yeah.
semi-prose.
Okay, we didn't really talk about those in depth. So, semi-prosine, a lot of familiar names here: Escape Pod, Faya, Correo, yay,
Yes.
Podcastle, Strange Horizons, and Uncanny Magazine.
So the main thing I want to talk about first is just kind of the Hugo committee being really shitty to some of the semi-prosines. So the last 2 years, Strange Horizons has been listing everyone who's involved in the creation of their product, like not just the publishers, not just the editors, but like their first readers and everyone who helps make it what it is.
Yeah.
And there was an issue a few years ago where they're like, no, you can only do 7. It was resolved after outcry. And it's really disappointing to see Chengdu go back to that. And so that's why for like Faya, Correo, and Strange Horizons, you're just saying like the magazine's team instead of listing everyone. So I'm really disappointed that Worldcon made that call. I think it is a massive step backwards and devalues the work of a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm happy that Choreo made it. I have been nominating it ever since the first year it was eligible, so I'm really happy that it finally made the shortlist, because Choreo is one of my favorite semi-prosines that is currently publishing. It's like they do amazing work. They are constantly centering like new and emerging like talent, and like they also are very accessible. They publish pretty much all of their stories in audiobook format as well, and like available on their site. So it's like very, very good to see it, and I'm really interested to see how the votes turn out for it. I'm hoping for the best. Also, Faya, once again, like it's great to see them.
I'm really happy with that. I will say, and this is something I think I've meant, like bringing back to kind of the conversation we were having before about like why people might recuse themselves and how one of the things might be for the health of the category. I wish to God Uncanny would start recusing themselves, because like how many times have they won over the last decade? Like it is just, I think like Faya is the only semi-prosine within like the last 7 or 8 years that is not Uncanny who's won. And it's just, it's really frustrating. Like I don't want to discount the work that they're doing. However, I think it's stifling other semi-prosines that are doing really great work that I wish could be acknowledged.
I think it definitely stands out. They have gone against the trend of recusing after winning, especially multiple times in the down ballot categories, and I think it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, well, the reason they give is that they have a different team working every single time, like with them, like every single year they have a different team, but like the average reader doesn't see that when all of the names, for example, that are listed here in the nominations are the same names that are listed every single year, who are actually the ones responsible for the magazine. So I'm just saying, like it starts to smell like an excuse at this point than an actual valid reason. Because like every other semi-prosine also has variations and fluctuations to their teams, their sizes, and the different people working on it. So like, and they have also recused. So I'm just like, Uncanny, yes, they are making good work. I have also supported Uncanny. I read Uncanny, but it's really frustrating to see it like basically curb stomp the entire category each year. Because that is and like pretty much the only, like that is the one magazine that a lot of people read.
Yeah, and like Beneath Ceaseless Skies had been a frequent nominee, but they recused themselves this year because they're like, look, we keep being nominated and we want to give room for other folks to be nominated. And I respect that. And I think, it was LKM put in that Scott H. Andrews is there as a short fiction editor, since like it's nice to see him recognized as like despite the fact that Beneath Ceaseless Sky isn't up for best semi-prosine.
Yeah. I will also say that, for example, I would have wanted to see something like Anathema or Future Science Fiction Digest.
I nominated Anathema.
I nominated Anathema as well. And and will be interesting once again to see the long list of like which semi-prosine did Uncanny keep out?
I'm going to be real mad if it's anathema. Just
Yeah.
putting that out there.
All right. Any thoughts on fanzine?
I'm very happy that Nerds of a Feather is back. I really like their work.
Can I read the nominees if we're going to talk about it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
That's the only thing I have to say is I'm happy.
All
for
right.
Nerds of a Feather.
Best fanzine, we have Chinese Academic SF Express, Galactic Journey, Journey Planet, Nerds of a Feather, Unofficial Hugo Book Club blog, and Zero Gravity newspaper. And a lot of these, the English ones, are definitely repeats this year.
Yeah.
I'm very happy about Journey Planet. Because
Hasn't Journey Planet been a staple of this category for a long time?
yeah, but I only got into it last year,
Oh,
so now I
okay.
know what I'm talking about. Because now I know what kind of like work they actually do. So now I can be happy about it. But yeah, I think, is this the first nomination for unofficial Hugo Book Club?
No,
No, it's at least
Okay.
the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
they were nominated last year.
Ah, okay, okay.
They got second place after Shauna McGuire and Lee Moyer.
Do you think that
Thing.
might mean that they might have a chance of winning this year?
I think
Like,
it will
do you
depend.
think they have momentum? But yeah, Nerds
Yeah, I
of a
don't
Feather is
know.
definitely like has been nominated many times.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about best fan cast?
Yes.
Let all of the
We're
congratulations come
saving
in.
the best for last.
Oh, wait, well, we also have best fan writer, but I've got nothing on that. So
I got nothing.
okay. Can we just
I'm
skip
sorry,
best
I
fan writer?
also don't have
Okay.
much.
Anybody in the chat, if you have thoughts about best fan writer, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, please
but
feel
we don't
free
have any-
to like have thoughts on best fan writer, and we could read some of those out, I think.
You want me to read best fan writer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
so the
if
best fan
people have
writer
comments. Yeah.
finalists are Chris M. Barkley, Bitter Corella, Arthur Liu, River Flow, Jason Sanford, and Orion Weston. I'll be curious to see once again if the voter packet has some information. I believe Orion Weston is the microscience fiction account on
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yes,
Which I think is pretty darn
Better
cool.
Corellia is the Midnight Club.
Yeah.
River Flow is a Chinese nominee, also credited for Best Fanzine under Zero Gravity newspaper.
Mhm.
Chris M. Barkley and Jason Sanford sound really familiar to me, but I can't place them.
Jason, I mean, I did nominate
Mhm.
Jason Sanford. He does the Grapevine SFF or SFF Grapevine. I can
Yeah,
never
he
remember the
posts
order.
on his Patreon a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, wrote Plague Birds,
Yeah.
the book. Ah,
He
that's
definitely
where I
covers
know
some
him
interesting
from.
topics in the industry.
Yeah, because I know Plague Birds, but I like, yeah.
And yes, Barkley
File
publishes a lot
7.
on File 770. That's where I know his name from.
I will say that this year, not last year, but this year, I have been surprisingly reading a lot by File 770, mainly because they've been covering everything related to the Chengdu stuff.
That's mainly why I've been visiting their
I
site.
have
Yeah.
only been
That's the
following
only reason
their
I visit their
Worldcon
site.
coverage, but
Other
I
than
have
that,
been
I don't.
following their Worldcon coverage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our last category is Best Fan Cast, and the nominees here are the Coode Street Podcast, Hugo Girl, Hugo's There, me, Octothorpe, and World Building for Masochists.
Congratulations, Rachel!
Thank you.
What is it? Is this a third time Hugo nominee?
No, it's two. It's two.
Is it only 2?
Really?
You were nominated for Washington. Oh,
yeah, I was
then
nominated
it's
in
2.
21.
Well,
And
2 times Hugo nominee. Congratulations. Waited 3 hours to say congratulations.
thank you, Brett. Sorry I made you wait so long.
Okay. I'm actually like, I think Hugo's there. This is the first nomination for him. I think Hugo Girl, is that first or
I
second
think it's
nomination?
a second nomination. Let me
Yeah.
double check.
I admit I'm ashamed that in this category that I'm nominated in, I have not kept up with any of the other.
I know
nominees,
Hugo's
so-
there. I know
Yeah.
that one. And Cood Street podcast I also know, but I don't really like actively listen to it. Like I've listened to like a few episodes here and there. Yeah, Cood Street podcast I think won last year.
They finally did win last year.
Last year was Our Opinions Are Correct, and then Annalee Newitz and Charlie Jane Anders recused themselves from permanently because they had won a few years in a row, and so they permanently recused themselves.
Oh yeah.
Last year the nominations.
Was it last year when Annalee Newitz and Charlie Jane Anders were presenting the Hugos, and then they had to like they
Yes.
presented the award and then they accepted the winning award. Yeah, that was But didn't Cood Street podcast won 1 year? Like
They
or-
won
might
for
have
the
won-
first time
okay.
the year in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is cool for them because I used to follow Cood Street podcast. Like I was a diehard listener for a number of years early on.
Yeah, I think time is a stretched out concept that I have no way of keeping up with nowadays. Like
I will admit, and I think this is something we talked about in previous ones, I would really like for some of the fan casts if there was like a separate category for authors who are hosting podcasts versus non-authors.
Cue the annual discussion of the fan
what
cast
is a
category
fan
that's
and what is a pro?
often dominated by professionals.
Oh, Ron says that Octothorpe covers the Chengdu mess well too. You will not like their Lodestar opinions though. No, probably not. Our Lodestar opinions are the only correct ones.
I feel like you should check it out.
In the vein of Charlie Jane Anders and Annalee Newitz, our Lodestar opinions are correct.
Yes. We have the best opinions. The only ones that count. Don't take that out of context.
I get almost all of my fan content in video form. And have done so for years. So every year I nominate booktubers in this category, and it's the only fan category I nominate in, and I nominate booktubers, and I try to nominate different people every year depending on who's posted great stuff in the past year. And I will continue to do so.
Sorry. I was going to
say, my white whale for a nomination is J.N. Miles Explain the X-Men. I will keep nominating him. I will keep beating the drum for them because I think it's great. It's a great long-running podcast, and I love J.N. Miles. I also keep nominating Desi Geek Girls, but they're
basically,
not. Yeah.
I basically each year I try to stretch out to another category, especially in the fan categories which get lower nomination and voting numbers in general. So first I started expanding my reach to short fiction stuff, and then best professional artist was next, and now it's been fan cast, and I think next year I'm trying to like reach out again and do like probably fan artist or fan writer is gonna be the next category that I try to like actually put some tabs on and expand. So I will have a more diverse and robust nomination list.
I think I would just really like to get back into short fiction. I miss having a full ballot of nominees, but it's,
I have
dropped the ball on reading like graphic novel and manga works over the last few years, and that I should really be reading more of those to nominate.
I had a whole ass book club for short fiction, and it really helped with nominations this year. But this year it's like, I hope that once I get, the inspiration, the creative juices flowing again, then I can finally start like doing something with the Shorts and Sorcery book club again, because it was really helpful in like getting me to actually like read short fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to talk? Oh, we're at time, aren't we?
We are at
Yeah,
time.
we are at
and
time.
We need to get Rhea to bed.
Yes.
So if anybody has concluding thoughts, let's make it snappy and wrap up.
I'm shocked that we're starting voting tomorrow. That's my concluding thought. Like, I'm not prepared.
Oh.
I'm not mentally
By the end of
prepared.
September, right?
Yeah, it's like September is like the cutoff. Like, I
Yeah,
don't remember
September
which
30th.
date in September, but like, yeah. So
To
it's a
be
pretty
honest,
short.
I will probably go in and do like preliminary voting on things I'm sure about right away to get something in, because I'm convinced that if I don't do that, by the time I actually get around to doing it proper, I won't be able to access the website or something. It's like my nightmare.
I'm also like, I have doubts that they will be able to get the Hugo voters packet on time to people. Like I've kind of like I've
put holds on things from the library because I am not counting on the voter packet.
Yeah, basically. And to end, Ron says that Glasgow will be awesome. Yes, you're right. Glasgow will be awesome.
I'm so sad I won't be able to go.
You will be
There
with
will
us
be
in
Worldcon,
spirit.
but there will also be Scottish Highlands. So
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. It's a bad time for me.
Also, I will say that Glasgow has already like heaps and pounds with the like communication and all the like membership.
I feel like I'm getting more communication from Glasgow.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I did the whole layaway plan for the attending membership with Glasgow, and it has been like such a smooth experience. Like each month they let me know that this is the thing and this is how much you owe and this is how much you will pay, and I will be like, okay, ding 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 ding, and then next month once again, okay, here's your existing balance, and I'm like, this is like a well-oiled car, it just works.
Yeah.
I'm just here to be a passenger princess, and someone from the Glasgow team is just riding me through the Highlands.
So, going back to Chengdu for a second, has anybody heard anything about virtual convention?
Nope. Not a single thing.
My understanding
is there's going to be one in theory, right?
Yeah.
In theory, but they have, I think in the last communication they said something that they like have some unexpected issues. I think that was in one of their emails, it was said that, you know, they are experiencing some delays with some of the features of the convention, but they did not specify what features they actually were talking about. So I'm not sure if it's about the physical convention or the virtual convention or lack thereof or both.
I feel like one of their major issues could be that their convention center isn't built yet.
Yeah. That's yeah.
I would start there.
Yeah.
I do think construction is well underway, right? It's not still
I hope so.
Yeah. If you voted in site selection, you get virtual attending. Mm-hmm. That is true. For those of us who are not going to be physically attending, it would be really great to know if virtual is happening.
I'm probably just going to get a supporting membership.
You mean it's built or in process? Because
a few months ago it was still in progress.
I thought that it was scheduled to be completed by the end of August, but I don't remember where I read that.
I hope for the best for them, because I hope that they have a spectacular on-site Chinese Worldcon.
Yes. I like Chengdu has been the sort of thing where I wish all the best and like I wish all the success, but I'm also slightly scared because of all the things that are coming out of the convention and stuff like that. I'm like,
I also think it will be a learning opportunity once this is all over for the Worldcon community to look back at what happened and
watch File 770 Octothorpe make a whole like compiled Chengdu retrospective that will be eligible for related work next year.
Right.
Somebody will do a whole essay series.
Yes. Okay.
All right. I think that is it for us. Thank you, everyone who stuck around for 3 hours for our opinions on the 2023 Hugo Awards shortlist. We should be planning on being back for the regular Stitch and Bitch live show in July. It's still July, right?
Yes,
Yes.
on Kelsey's channel.
I had a moment where I was like, wait, are we in August already?
We're not in
we
August
need
yet.
to
It is
decide-
not my birthday month yet. We still have time.
We need to decide on the date, but yes, July Stitch and Bitch
Yes.
should still be happening on Kelsey's channel this month.
Yes. So
Because we have other things
yes,
we need
no,
to bitch
I
about.
do think
Yes.
it's either going to be the 23rd or the 30th. It's not going to be next weekend because I'm not in town.
it's not going to be the 30th.
So it's going to be the 23rd.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yep, let's okay, you heard it here
I would
first,
say
23rd.
yes to the 30th, except I'm going to be majorly jet lagged and in a foreign country, and it's
Oh
probably
yeah,
not gonna
that's
work out.
true. That's true. That is gonna happen. Oh yeah. I had almost forgot about that.
Yeah, you can't forget, Ray. You're picking me up from the airport.
I know. Okay, so 23rd on
23rd.
Kelsey's channel. Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.